Damien is a 13-year-old orphan who has just joined the medieval military. But before he even gets settled in, the higher-ups announce that this little boy is going to lead one of the squads. One muscle-headed soldier instantly loses it, furious that some little brat is supposed to command him. He tells Damien this isn't some children's playground, it's a real army, and he'll never believe a kid like him can be a leader. So he challenges Damien to a duel, and our boy accepts because this idiot clearly needs to be shown his place. Soon everyone gathers outside to watch. The duel begins, and the muscle freak immediately charges at Damien with everything he has. But he's not a match for Damien, not even close. Damien sees every move coming from miles away and flawlessly dodges every attack. The musclehead is completely confused by what's happening, and that only makes him angrier. He keeps attacking harder and faster, but our boy doesn't even let him touch him. Then suddenly Damien disappears. Before the soldier can even react, a mana-infused punch lands. It's so fast that the musclehead doesn't even realize what happened. His body simply gives out, and he crashes face first into the dirt in front of everyone. The entire squad goes silent. Damien calmly looks at the terrified recruits and asks, "Anyone else want to try?" So who exactly is this 13-year-old orphan who can casually destroy grown soldiers? Damien remembers his first steps onto the battlefield, taking a life for the very first time at just 25 in the middle of a chaotic fight. Looking back, he realizes he has already taken down over 2,000 enemies. After fighting for so long and barely standing his ground, the exhausted warrior eventually collapses onto the cold dirt. Just then, the memory starts fading and brings him back to the present. In a sunny outdoor area where an official explains to a young Damien that his uncle will be managing his late father's insurance. The employee flashes a sarcastic smile and casually tells the boy to just sign the papers to get it over with. The young boy feels super suspicious about the whole setup and glares back with absolute seriousness. The uncle tries to offer some fake reassurance, claiming that signing the document is all it takes and promising to return the full amount the moment the kid officially becomes an adult. Damien grips the paper tightly because this exact day is when his entire life completely fell apart. Instead of giving in, he dramatically rips the document right down the middle and demands that the money be deposited directly into his own imperial account. The uncle and the employee stand there completely shocked by the kid's absolute audacity. Damien keeps setting the ground rules, declaring that nobody can withdraw a single cent without his personal signature, staring them down with an intense look that screams he is no longer a helpless child to be scammed. Unable to keep his rage in check, the uncle clenches his fist with pure hatred, grabs Damien by the collar, and violently demands that he sign the paperwork immediately. Instead of flinching, the boy just smiles, realizing his relative is still the exact same scumbag as always. Without wasting a single second, the boy lands a direct, powerful punch straight to the man's face, sending the uncle crashing onto the floor. He continues to insult him without an ounce of fear or hesitation, while the official watches the whole beatdown in absolute terror, scared out of his mind by the kid's aggressive energy. Desperate to protect himself, he quickly rushes to add new clauses directly into the contract. Watching this play out, Damien remembers that in his past life he was only 13 years old and completely powerless to stop them. Somehow, he has miraculously returned to the past. His mind wanders back to the icy cold battle where his fate seemed completely sealed, surrounded by endless pools of blood in a scene of pure despair. The warrior felt a bitter regret inside, knowing from the very beginning that the mission was basically a total suicide run. He still couldn't believe how a mere 100 soldiers could possibly defeat 2,000 enemies. As the fight raged on, blood from both allies and enemies spattered everywhere, and his vision started getting blurry while looking at all the lifeless bodies of his friend on the ground. Overwhelmed by guilt, he closed a friend's eyes, apologizing for not being strong enough to save his squad, and slammed his fist into the ground, cursing his cruel fate with a heart full of pure rage. At the same time, the severe chest wound begins taking its final toll on him, causing extreme pain. Feeling his remaining strength fade away, he realizes his end is right around the corner. His helmet rolls onto the dirt, marking the final fall of the Centurion in that brutal battle. Gasping for air and covered in blood, he starts weighing all his choices, wondering if things would have been different if he had joined the army much earlier. Deep down, he begs for just one more chance to restart his life. He visualizes the image of leading his men with absolute courage and determination, but the harsh reality hits him hard as he feels his life slipping away. His hand finally drops lifelessly to the ground, ending his long journey of suffering on the battlefield. Next thing he knows, he wakes up feeling the soft touch of bed sheets, realizing he has actually traveled 17 years back in time. The young boy sits up in a panic, staring at his tiny, childlike hands while trying to wrap his head around this unbelievable miracle. He quickly checks his stomach, which is crucial for any warrior, and finds that his mana hole is completely intact, meaning he can start training and mastering this power right away. He remembers losing everything to his greedy uncle in his past life, forced to survive on absolute pennies. Back then, after taking the blame for a street gang because of the debt his guardian left behind, he ended up thrown into prison, which eventually dragged him straight into the horrifying war zone. He thought his life was completely over back then, but fate had other plans, somehow turning him into a powerful centurion before he ultimately died in battle anyway. Opening his eyes with a sharp stare, Damien realizes his time as a soldier gave him incredible instincts. He sits up fast in the pitch-black room, sensing a dangerous intruder trying to sneak inside during the quiet night. As he grips his dagger tightly, the mysterious enemy slowly turns the door handle, and a dark shadow slides into the room without making a single sound. Damien jumps up instantly, pulling off a lethal surprise attack by driving his dagger deep into the intruder's leg, making the guy scream out in pure agony. Damien mutters angrily under his breath, because the blade only went halfway in, failing to completely disable the target. Suddenly, a second assassin pops out from the shadows, shouting that he is going to end the boy's life right here. Thanks to his insane reflexes, Damien effortlessly dodges the coming sword slash. With this, he fires back with a brutal counter that slices deep into the man's thigh before demanding to know who sent him to carry out this cowardly assassination. Both assassins collapse to the ground, completely overwhelmed by the kid's speed. Without showing an ounce of mercy, Damien grabs one by the collar and drives his dagger into his thigh, demanding to know if his uncle sent them. Suddenly, a creepy voice comes from the doorway, commenting that the kid's aura is way too terrifying for a regular child. Damien immediately recognizes the new visitor as Mukman, the mastermind behind it all. To focus completely on this new threat, Damien casually slits the throat of the assassin on the ground without skipping a beat, ending his life instantly. A dark smile spreads across the boy's face as he realizes everything is falling into place, just like it did before. He remembers how things unfolded 17 years ago when he was nothing more than a helpless child. Back then, his uncle had him brutally beaten in the pouring rain before selling him off as a slave. Coming back to the present without showing an ounce of regret, the boy finishes off the target and paints the floorboards in a dark coat of villain blood. He analyzes the whole situation with absolute hatred in his eyes, realizing that his absolute scumbag of an uncle actually sold him out. The boss of the sneaky operation glares at the boy with a challenging look, clearly itching to jump into the final showdown. With this, he zooms straight toward Damien with incredible speed, fully prepared to deliver a lethal strike, but the young boy dodges the swinging blade with absolute ease. The boss stands there with his eyes wide open in complete shock when he realizes this random teenager managed to slip right past his fastest move without getting a single scratch. Damien looks down at him with pure disrespect, wondering if this guy was always this hilariously weak and slow. The enemy gets super desperate and starts swinging his sword wildly through the air, but the boy just floats around every attack without breaking a single sweat. As the boss screams out in pure frustration, Damien himself knows that surviving near-death experiences countless times gave him the ultimate cheat code to predict every incoming hit. He can read the direction of the guy's footsteps and spot the tiniest tilt in his shoulders, allowing him to know exactly where the enemy's sword will land long before the swing even starts. Drenched in sweat and losing his mind, Mukman cannot wrap his head around how a kid is predicting his every move like he has full map vision. He tries to rush the boy one more time, but Damien finds the whole attempt painfully slow and completely predictable. In one lightning-fast motion, the kid slaps the attacker's arm hard enough to send his weapon flying across the room, letting the sword crash onto the floor. Taking full advantage of the opening, the boy uses a clean military grappling move to lock the guy's arm in place, leaving the grown man looking completely embarrassed and screaming in pure rage after getting totally flexed on by a literal child. With that, Mukman crashes to the ground and starts trembling in absolute terror. No normal kid should possess this kind of terrifying combat skill. Damien locks eyes with him and casually slashes his arm, leaving the wounded villain drenched in cold sweat as the horrifying realization sinks in that his opponent is only 13 years old. The boy calmly puts his weapon away and asks if the guy wants to know how his move got blocked so easily, explaining that predicting the attack is simple once you catch the exact micro-movement of an arm lifting up. The boss quakes in fear like a scared puppy, realizing nothing about this situation makes any sense whatsoever. Damien presses a sharp dagger directly against the enemy's neck, casually telling him to believe whatever he wants because the truth is right in front of his face. The boss tries to act tough by threatening the boy, asking what happens if everyone else finds out about this whole mess. But Damien just presses the blade a little deeper into his skin, making it very clear that the guy will die right here before spreading any silly rumors. The boy actually gives the man a quick compliment for having a tiny bit of brains and demands to know one last time if the greedy uncle was the main sponsor who ordered the hit. The boss hesitates to answer while trying to process the grim reality, but Damien warns him that if he wants to avoid walking with a limp for the rest of his life, he better start spilling the beans immediately. Trapped under the boy's terrifying presence, the boss finally confesses that the uncle ordered them to bring the boy back barely alive, and Damien chillingly replies that this was the exact answer he needed to hear. Before the boss can even react to the response, the boy slashes his throat, and he desperately reaches up with both hands as his blood starts pouring out without stopping. Damien casually walks away, fully aware that he needs to clean up after himself before leaving the area. This happens to be one of the valuable life lessons he picked up during his 30 years on Earth. The boy reminds himself how important it is to avoid making unnecessary enemies, but if you accidentally make one, you have to crush them so hard that they can never become a threat again. Meanwhile, the quiet night covers the massive mansion where the uncle is anxiously waiting for his evil plot to finish up. Inside the office, another hitman leader casually pats his pockets and mentions that the job should be completely wrapped up by now, reassuring the anxious uncle that his boys will drag the kid into the room the moment they finish the dirty work. The uncle continues to curse and insult his nephew, still rocking a super swollen face from the earlier punch while blaming Damien for ruining all his financial plans. The hitman leader tells him to show a little patience and warns that he will not accept any discounts on the payment just because of a tiny delay. Suddenly, a loud and aggressive crash shatters the quiet atmosphere around the entrance, causing both men to whip their heads toward the door. The hitman leader assumes his boys have finally arrived with the target, while the uncle starts plotting his ultimate revenge for when the boy signs the contract. However, just as the hooded guy slowly walks toward the doorway, the door suddenly bursts open, and a dagger comes flying straight at him. With this, Damien casually steps into the office while carrying a heavy spear, looking like he owns the place, and sarcastically confirming that he is the kid they are looking for. He calls the assassin nothing more than his uncle's lackey who blindly follows orders. The remark catches the man off guard for a second before he bursts out laughing. However, he quickly turns serious and tells Damien's uncle that the job will now cost triple the original fee since they've taken a heavy hit. With that, he draws his sword pointing at the blood on the boy's spear and gets ready to face him head on. Meanwhile, the corrupt uncle stands there sweating bullets and completely clueless about what to do after hearing the guy demand an absurd threefold pay bump. The mercenary boss pulls a total business move by threatening to pack up and walk away instantly if the greedy old man refuses to cough up the extra cash. Looking back and forth in absolute terror, the uncle realizes his entire life depends on making a quick decision, so he desperately screams out that he will pay whatever it takes as long as the boy gets eliminated. Flashing a smug, sarcastic grin, the guy takes out his sword and declares the deal officially locked in, casually admitting that he could not care less about his dead crew since this whole hit job is purely business for him. On the flip side, Damien stares at him with glowing red eyes filled with pure hatred, because this whole situation is deeply personal for him. He remembers spending half of his past life rotting away like absolute garbage in the filthy back alleys and even had his mana hole broken. Now holding his spear with absolute main character energy, the boy vows that he will not show a single ounce of mercy and warns the boss to get ready to meet his maker. Hearing that, the assassin calls Damien a cocky little brat before charging forward with a lightning-fast sword strike. However, the young centurion effortlessly blocks the hit, leaving the experienced killer totally shocked. He notices the boy is casually aiming for his legs while matching his speed move for move, making him realize this little guy is definitely not some ordinary boy. The assassin tries to overwhelm Damien with a barrage of brutal slashes, relying heavily on his years of street fighting experience, but the boy reads him like an open book. The assassin even throws a punch to block the boy's vision, but to his shock, Damien simply tilts his head and avoids it. Thinking he finally has an opening, the assassin immediately goes for Damien's leg. But once again, the boy casually sidesteps the attack, leaving the assassin completely wide open. Our boy points out that the knife in the assassin's right hand was the real threat, and he immediately follows up with heavy counterstrikes across his whole body, sending the grown man flying backward through the air. Damien looks down on him with absolute superiority, admitting he saw right through his cheap tricks from the very beginning. Gashing his teeth in pure frustration, the assassin curses at the universe for letting him get totally embarrassed by a literal middle schooler. In a complete act of desperation, he tries to rush forward one last time, but Damien ends the fight once and for all with a swift, merciless strike directly across the guy's throat. Doing that, Damien looks down at the lifeless body and notes that even though the assassin was slightly stronger than the previous guy, he was still nothing more than low-grade street trash. Turning around with cold, terrifying eyes, the boy slowly walks toward his final target. The uncle completely loses his mind, dropping straight to his knees and desperately begging for his life while crying like a total coward. Completely ignoring the pathetic display, Damien inches closer in a menacing fashion and takes him down in a flash. By the next morning, the local notary respectfully bows before Damien and informs him that 650 gold coins, along with a hefty amount of platinum, will be deposited directly into his personal account. After everything that had happened, the first thing the boy did was collect his insurance payout. The official bows again and expresses how much he looks forward to working with the young master in the future, before politely asking where the boy plans to travel next. Outside the estate, a flashy luxury carriage stands waiting for Damien, signaling that he is about to set off on a massive journey. When the boy casually reveals his plan to enlist directly into the royal army, the official's jaw drops in absolute shock. Damien hops inside the carriage, revealing that there are a few super important people he desperately needs to meet up with again. As he stares thoughtfully out the window at the passing scenery, he remembers that in just 5 short years, the world is going to completely devolve into a chaotic war zone, forcing countless young boys to get drafted into the military against their will. Knowing that an unavoidable apocalyptic war is fast approaching, the boy places a hand on his chest and smiles with immense relief, super happy that his mana core is completely intact so he can grind his stats and train his magic early. He decides that instead of waiting around to get drafted later, voluntarily joining the army right now as a young recruit is a way better move. He plans to spend the first week practicing a special mana technique before officially enrolling in the military training camp. Staring out at the horizon with burning determination, Damien vows that he will never be a helpless pawn of fate ever again, fully intending to be the ultimate boss of his own destiny this time around. A week later, Damien is out in the high-level military camp's training yard and performs a series of high-speed spear strikes, generating intense shockwaves that leave all the surrounding recruits utterly confused about where a tiny kid learned such high-tier martial arts. Even though he hits the bullseye with terrifying precision and power, Damien makes a disappointed face because his current body is still way too weak and soft compared to his prime warrior days. Just then, a friendly camp instructor approaches Damien in awe, praising his insane spearmanship and asking if he is a trainee applicant. In his head, Damien chuckles because the technique he just used was actually the strongest spear art in the entire kingdom, even though he pretended it was just a basic soldier move. To avoid raising any weird red flags, the boy smoothly lies and claims he learned the moves from his late father, prompting the instructor to apologize for asking and praise the kid's humility, which instantly gives him a pass from him. This confuses the boy, so the instructor tries to act totally cool and coughs away his awkwardness, asking the talented young warrior for his name. Damien stands tall and proudly announces his name, making the man give him a friendly slap on the shoulder, while the boy quietly hides his magical energy back inside his hand. Damien nods politely at the instructor's words of encouragement and watches him head up the main courtyard stairs. Once he is left completely alone, the boy begins to concentrate a mysterious mana energy inside himself, feeling an insanely hot and powerful surge flowing through his fresh energy channels. He flashes a huge smile, hyped out of his mind that he can finally manipulate and flex his mana once again. The method the boy is using is the Delft Mana Cultivation Method, created 15 years ago by a genius from the Delft family. Although it has extremely strict requirements, it's considered one of the most efficient cultivation methods among cultivators. Back in his past life, when Damien's mana core was shattered, he had no choice but to obsessively memorize every elite technique created by top-tier geniuses just to stay afloat. His old soldier squad used to roast him constantly for memorizing high-level moves he couldn't even cast, which used to drive him crazy. However, all that past grinding is finally paying off, turning all those old jokes into his ultimate secret weapon as he prepares to breeze through the entrance exams. Walking through the Kreutz camp, Damien suddenly recalls that an absolute legend trained in this exact same facility. The image of a strong warrior with silver hair pops into his head, making him super curious about what that legendary figure is up to in this current timeline. Meanwhile, dozens of young recruits gather in the main courtyard to kick off the very first phase of the exam. The opening challenge is simple yet brutal, lifting a massive 30-kilogram boulder straight over their heads, which is the perfect setup to filter out all the weak casuals immediately. Damien walks up and casually lifts the giant rock like it weighs nothing, instantly getting the green light from the impressed examiners. Reaching the first level of mana control makes simple physical strength tests feel like absolute child's play. With the strength test wrapped up, the recruits gather around to listen to the next set of instructions. A booming voice announces the start of the second phase, which happens to be a long-distance endurance run where everyone must cross the finish line to pass. The instructor points out that light bumps and shoulder checks are allowed along the track, but strictly warns that directly jumping or beating up other contestants will get them instantly disqualified. Damien immediately reads between the lines, realizing there are definitely undercover instructors hiding in the crowd to catch cheaters. The instructor warns that any cheating will result in an immediate ban, making the boy flash a confident smirk as he thinks about how chaotic and fun this survival race is going to be. Looking out at the long, red dirt track stretching across the landscape, Damien starts stretching his muscles. Suddenly, a handsome blonde kid walks up and comments on how cool it is that they ended up in the same group. The boy confirms it, admitting that he had already been keeping an eye on Damien back in the courtyard. Meanwhile, Damien tries to figure out why the guy's face looks so familiar. The blonde kid laughs and whispers directly into Damien's ear, revealing that he caught Damien using secret mana flow earlier. Hearing that, our boy is shocked as he knows how rare it is for commoners to use magic without high-tier backing, leaving him pretty surprised by the guy's sharp eyes. The blonde kid introduces himself as Apple, which instantly triggers Damien's memory. In his previous timeline, Apple grew up to become a legendary general and a revered count, setting the ultimate gold standard for commoner success. Apple offers a friendly handshake and suggests they both give it their absolute best, which Damien happily accepts. Just then, on the main platform, an instructor uses a megahorn to yell out the starting command. The moment the signal goes off, a massive cloud of dust erupts as all the recruits sprint forward onto the track. Damien starts off at a steady pace, focusing more on reading the movements of the crowd around him. Shortly after, the runners hit a steep incline known as the Wall of Wailing, which separates the real contenders from the casuals. Seeing that, Apple suggests sticking with the main pack to save energy, but Damien scoffs at the slow pace, explaining that playing it safe is totally not his style. Before Apple can even process the response, Damien takes off like a literal lightning bolt. In front, a couple of heavy-set undercover instructors notice the boy flying past the crowd. One massive guy chuckles evilly, planning to set up a human brick wall with his iron shoulders to give the kid a reality check. However, as Damien speeds toward the giant, he politely asks the big guy to excuse him before executing a clean vault right over the instructor's shoulders like a parkour master. Damien lands gracefully on the track, leaving the shocked instructors choking on his dust. The giant instructor angrily yells at the others to stop the kid, but the boy just laughs it off, knowing these basic camp staff pose zero threat to a veteran centurion. Inspired by Damien's wild move, Apple decides he refuses to be left in the dust. Using his own magical speed, he zips past the other runners, which accidentally triggers a massive stampede among the rest of the recruits. Everyone starts sprinting blindly, creating total chaos along the track as the panic-stricken guards desperately try to regain control of the crowd. Watching the chaos unfold from the side, a couple of instructors suggest sending extra guards to calm the recruits down, but the head instructor, Raymond, steps forward and tells them to let it ride. He notes that stepping in now would make the exam look rigged, adding that real leadership means lighting a fire under people. Smiling thoughtfully, Captain Raymond recognizes Damien's crazy potential, realizing the kid's bold move was the exact spark needed to push everyone beyond their limits. Meanwhile, Damien pants heavily as he pushes through his 29th lap out of the required 30. With the finish line finally in sight, he uses the last of his energy to speed up for the final lap. Surprisingly, Apple pulls up right beside him, showing off his own insane stamina while jokingly asking if causing that massive stampede was part of Damien's plan all along. Glancing back at the exhausted recruits collapsed on the dirt track, Damien smirks as the blonde points out that without mana, they all would have ended up completely cooked. With a smug smile on his face, Damien quips that when someone holds a legendary card in their hand, there is absolutely zero reason not to flex it. Apple bursts into a friendly laugh, finding his new training buddy to be a ridiculously interesting guy. Damien passes the compliment right back as both boys casually cross the finish line of the painful endurance run. Meanwhile, inside a luxurious office nearby, a high-ranking general reviews incoming reports while listening to incoming rumors about a wildly talented boy in the training grounds. An officer confirms that the strict head instructor Raymond got in touch to report that the mysterious prodigy is surprisingly only 13 years old. Leaning against his desk, the black-robed general figures that if the cold-hearted Raymond took a personal interest in the kid, there must be a pretty solid reason for it, eagerly admitting to his subordinate that he cannot wait to meet this so-called prodigy in person. Back in the main courtyard, dozens of recruits gather around to check the official exam results. Unsuccessful candidates throw quiet temper tantrums over their rejection notices, while the passing recruits celebrate like they just won the lottery. Damien watches the whole scene in total silence, wondering why anyone would celebrate so early when mandatory military conscription is right around the corner. He figures the current era still feels super peaceful, but his train of thought gets interrupted when Apple walks up waving his hand, offering a quick congratulations on becoming fellow recruits. Damien acts a bit surprised, but the blonde kid confirms he saw Damien's name posted right at the top of the board. Apple comments on noticing his age right away and admits he looks forward to working together, even though they might end up in completely different military units. Remembering they have a full week off before official duties begin, Apple asks our boy about his upcoming plans. Damien mentions he has a bunch of super important errands to clear off his checklist during the break. Apple casually drops a hand onto Damien's shoulder and recommends picking up soft insoles for his boots, warning him that standard military footwear feels like walking on literal bricks. Having survived a whole past life in combat boots, our boy already knows the struggle, but he keeps his mouth shut and promises to keep the advice in mind. When Damien asks Apple what his own plans are, the blonde kid gets mysteriously vague, whistling casually with a funny expression to dodge the question before wishing him good luck and waving goodbye. Left alone in the courtyard, Apple is quietly joined by a hooded old man dressed in dark clothes. Greeting the old servant as Alan, Apple watches Damien walk away in the distance, deeply curious about why the kid enlisted in the first place. Remembering how effortlessly he manipulated his mana flow during the exam, Apple figures his new friend is definitely hiding some massive secrets, concluding that he is a guy who will undoubtedly go far in life. Alan gets super confused by the statement, but Apple quickly changes the subject while the old man formally announces that the young master's carriage is fully prepped and ready to roll. Apple reminds the old servant never to call him young master in public to avoid drawing unwanted eyes, and the old man respectfully apologizes as they both slip away from the military grounds. The scene shifts directly to the capital city, where Damien navigates through the bustling streets while taking in the lively atmosphere. Looking at merchants hawking their goods, the boy finds it hard to believe how bright and peaceful the city currently feels, remembering that in his past timeline, these exact streets were pitch black, filthy and crawling with starving refugees begging for bread crusts. Knowing this whole vibrant setup will completely collapse in just 5 short years, when the catastrophic war breaks out, Damien decides to prep his survival plan immediately by tracking down a major merchant guild. He knows that once the fighting starts, weapons and supplies will become the ultimate gold mines on the planet. Reflecting on his past life, the boy remembered that the richest and most powerful trading group on the continent was the famous Work Group. During a brutal campaign in the middle of a scorching desert, a beat-up soldier rushed over to Captain Damien to excitedly report that a massive relief supply convoy was rolling into camp. At the time, Damien's squad members grumbled about how merchants always made insane profits while soldiers risked their lives on the front lines. Damien quickly reminded them that without those weapon shipments, every single soldier would have ended up dead on the battlefield anyway. He remembered how the leader of that supply guild used to wear a long, white hooded robe that partially hid his face, carrying a super arrogant and high and mighty vibe wherever he went. Back in the bright capital, Damien uses his memory to narrow down his search. He knows the merchant boss used to do a ton of high-profile charitable donations right before the big war hit. Out of 40 potential merchant guilds in the city, filtering for groups wealthy enough to fund massive public charity reduces his target list down to just 7 options. Spending the entire day hunting down the right location, an exhausted Damien finally stops in front of a massive wooden door, hoping this is the final stop on his tedious side quest. Knocking on the heavy wooden door, Damien politely asks if anyone is available to do business. A friendly merchant comes out with a wide, welcoming smile, asking how he can help. Damien bows respectfully and explains that he wants to make a substantial investment to support the guild's noble charity work. The merchant praises the boy's surprisingly generous mindset, but the boy focuses on double-checking if he actually hit the right location. The man introduces himself as Reich, the leader of the Hamel Guild, which instantly triggers warning bells in Damien's head as he realizes he finally tracked down the right target. Accepting a polite invitation to sit down and talk inside, Damien takes a seat at the table and immediately drops a super specific question, asking if the merchant happens to have a son. The merchant bursts into a laugh, explaining that he does not have a son at all, but rather just a young, totally immature daughter. Damien feels disappointed, thinking his search might have failed because of inaccurate historical records. But before he can dwell on it, a mysterious woman in a white hooded cloak enters the room. The moment he sees her, Damien is stunned. Her presence feels strangely familiar, reminding him of the legendary white-cloaked merchant boss from his past life. The merchant smiles warmly and introduces his daughter as DL, explaining to her that the young customer is here to make a serious business proposal. The beautiful young woman approaches with an extremely polite smile and pleasant manners, expressing a bit of surprise over whether a kid actually wants to invest serious capital, which Damien calmly confirms with zero hesitation. Our boy's brain starts working overtime as he connects the dots, realizing that while the future guild leader in his past timeline was assumed to be a guy, this young woman's age, posture, and aura match up perfectly. He starts suspecting that she might eventually end up taking over the family empire while disguising herself under an alias. Sensing a golden opportunity, the young woman asks about the exact size of the initial investment, since their future business moves depend heavily on cash flow. Damien keeps a totally straight face and casually drops that he wants to throw down an initial investment of 300 gold coins, promising to scale up the capital even more in the near future. Both the father and daughter stand there looking completely shocked by the absurdly massive amount of money, silently wondering if this kid is actually for real. The merchant quickly shifts into a serious business tone and figures that for a crazy sum like that, the boy must want something huge in return. Damien calmly explains that all he wants in exchange is a portion of the profits from the Hamel Merchant Guild. The father is deeply impressed that a kid can execute such a bold, high-level investment strategy in a cutthroat market, but he still voices a bit of suspicion, asking where a teenager even got that kind of insane bankroll. Damien just hits him with a smooth, relaxed smile, explaining that he is simply putting his late parents' inheritance to good use for a noble cause. The merchant politely apologizes for doubting him, and the boy waves it off with a friendly gesture before they all agree to hold an internal meeting to review the offer. After Damien takes his leave, the daughter curiously asks her dad why he seemed so visibly shaken by the boy's visit. The merchant smiles and admits that it is insanely impressive to see that level of ruthless determination and maturity in a 13-year-old kid. He even jokingly teases his daughter that the young man would make a pretty ideal partner for her, making the blonde girl blush bright red from total embarrassment while telling her dad to cut out the nonsense. Fast forward through the week and the long-awaited day for military enlistment finally arrives after closing the massive deal with the guild. Standing right outside the training camp, the young centurion locks his eyes on the horizon, fully aware that his true comeback journey starts right now. Remembering how miserably his first life ended on the battlefield, he tightens his fist, promising himself that this time around he will dominate his own fate once and for all. He casually strolls into the main barracks to hunt down his assigned platoon under 3rd Company. Looking around the crowded room, he notices 0 familiar faces and wonders if his new buddy Appel ended up getting sorted into a completely different squad. As he sits down on his new bunk, suddenly a loud, booming voice echoes across the room, catching Damien off guard as he turns around to see who is making all the noise. A heavily muscled guy steps forward and introduces himself as Brian, the squad leader who will be commanding the 1st platoon for the upcoming month. The commander firmly announces that he is kicking off an immediate mandatory inspection of everyone's personal belongings, flashing a mischievous grin while warning that anyone caught hiding contraband will face pure misery. The recruits instantly freak out and start dumping their bags onto their beds, while Damien just sits there, watching the whole circus unfold in complete silence. Brian walks down the line, barking orders for everyone to lay out their gear properly before stopping right in front of Damien's bed. Inspecting the boy's neat setup, Brian finds 0 illegal items, but he squints at him, noting that the kid looks way too young to be standing in a military barrack. When Brian asks for his real age, Damien casually drops that he is 13, leaving the squad leader looking completely stunned. 2 nearby recruits starts whispering toxic insults, complaining about how the military is apparently accepting little infants nowadays. The main instigator, a guy rocking an ugly mohawk, gets visibly annoyed when Damien hits him with a cold, disrespectful glare. Damien closes his eyes and decides not to waste breath arguing with random casuals, but he makes a mental note to beat the absolute brakes off the mohawk guy later. Meanwhile, a terrifying chill sweeps through the room as another recruit starts trembling uncontrollably right before Brian stops in front of him. The commander commands the guy to empty his bag immediately, and the terrified recruit tries to lie his way out of it by claiming he already took everything out. Brian raises an eyebrow and offers to personally search the suitcase, making the fraud sweat absolute bullets from pure panic. Breaking under the pressure, the desperate recruit dumps a whole stash of forbidden items onto his bed and begs for mercy. Brian walks around the room, sternly warning everyone that anyone caught hiding illegal gear will get slapped with severe military punishment, which includes running non-stop laps around the entire camp for a whole night without sleep. Damien offers a thoughtful nod, quietly agreeing that the strict punishment is totally justified for a dirty cheater. Relieved that the gear inspection is finally over, Brian announces that Phase 1 is complete and moves on to choosing a temporary squad leader for when he's away. The commander pulls out the entrance exam results and calls Damien's name, looking for the genius who scored perfectly. His eyes land on the Mohawk recruit, and he assumes that's Damien because of his appearance. But then the real Damien, the small kid, speaks up from behind him. Shocked, Brian asks if he's really the one who got the perfect score. Damien casually confirms it, leaving the Mohawk recruit completely stunned. The jealous recruit, Kyle, immediately starts complaining that letting a kid lead the squad will make the Royal Army look like a joke. Damien finds his rant boring but decides to shut him down, sarcastically saying he could do a better job than any musclehead there. Just then, Brian steps in, warning Kyle that disrespecting a temporary leader has consequences. But Kyle asks for one final chance to speak and challenges Damien to a 1v1 duel, claiming the winner will prove who truly deserves the position. Brian turns to Damien, asking if he accepts. Damien agrees without hesitation, seeing this as the perfect chance to establish his authority. He casually says he only needs to knock down this pile of muscles, which makes Kyle furious. With this, Brian asks the squad if they support the duel, and everyone immediately agrees, so without wasting time, he clears the area and prepares the match. Once outside, the instructor lays out the fight rules and asks if both of them are ready to throw down. Kyle answers with an arrogant grin, basically vibing like he's already won. Damien just gives a calm nod, silently saying he's more than ready, and the official signal to start the duel goes out. Kyle immediately starts talking trash, saying he feels kind of bad beating up a literal child, and Damien tells him to quit yapping and actually attack. That comment lights a fuse, and the big guy grits his teeth in pure rage before charging full speed, fully intent on wrecking this kid for his attitude. The boy watches the incoming rush and clocks pretty quickly that this opponent is way faster than your average soldier, but even so, when the attack finally reaches him, he slips out of the way without breaking a sweat, casually proving he's playing an entirely different game. Kyle looks genuinely stunned, like he just got outplayed by a guy who read his moves before he even made them. Annoyed that his cheap shot didn't land, he goes for another fast strike and Damien responds by straight up clowning him for being slow. Naturally, that only makes Kyle angrier, so he decides to stop holding back and throw his full weight into just flattening this kid into the dirt. He lunges forward, trying to end the annoying footwork for good, but Damien dodges again with clean, precise movement, not even needing to touch him. Kyle has no idea where the kid went until he suddenly hears him right behind his back. Without wasting a second, the boy slams a mana-charged punch straight into his side. Kyle feels the full weight of that hit and drops to the ground, gasping for air. He struggles to get back up. Meanwhile, the boy respects the fact that this guy can even still move after that. Then, fully consumed by rage, the big guy screams that he's going to kill the brat no matter what it takes and charges in with sloppy, unfocused attacks. Damien easily slips past the chaos and decides this is the perfect moment to end the fight for good, landing one clean, devastating punch that instantly stops Kyle's momentum cold. The guy goes flying backward with a pained scream, his whole body crashing down while consciousness slips away from him fast. Damien casually dusts off his hands and notices the man passing out before he even hits the ground, then coolly glances over at the rest of the recruits like nothing happened. With that terrifyingly clean win, nobody else in the crowd wants any part of this smoke. Every recruit backs off and shakes their heads like, nope, hard pass. The instructor officially ends the match and announces Damien as the new leader. A while later, Kyle limps out of the infirmary with his head down, mentally roasting himself for getting knocked out cold on the very first hit and not even remembering the rest of the fight. He can't believe he lost that easily, especially since he thought nobody there could touch him. His teammates are shocked to see him, half expecting the big guy to start trouble again and get sent right back to the infirmary. But then Kyle slowly walks up to Damien, and the kid looks back at him, caught off guard. To everyone's surprise, Kyle actually kneels in front of Damien and announces that he'll serve as his subordinate from now on. Unfazed, Damien wonders if he really hit him that hard in the head. Meanwhile, Kyle honestly admits that he respects anyone who proves they're the strongest, even if that person looks young. To him, strength deserves respect. Seeing all this, Damien helps him up, saying that simply calling him by his name is enough. The two shake hands in a surprisingly wholesome moment, agreeing to work together from now on. A week flies by, and the recruits keep grinding through the exhausting training routine. While jogging with his squad, Damien is just internally complaining about how brutal military life is, when the instructor suddenly orders everyone back to the barracks, except him. Confused about the surprise order, he follows and ends up standing in front of a big admin office door, wondering if there's some kind of announcement coming. Inside, he finds the other squad leaders already lined up. One of them shoots Damien a dismissive glare and mocks him, while our boy can't help but think the guy's smile looks just like a praying mantis. Our boy internally thinks how funny it would be seeing this twig standing next to Kyle, given how opposite they are. Meanwhile, Damien stays ice cold and fires back with his own trash talk. In response, the rest of the squad leaders can't help but hold their laughter. That's when the instructor walks in, confused about the noise, and the mouthy recruit switches to a threatening tone while Damien just tunes him out completely. Turns out, they've all been gathered because a major platoon-wide competition is happening in a week, and everyone is ordered to be fully prepared. The leaders respond with confidence, and the instructor dismisses the group. As everyone heads out, the bully from before stops the boy and starts yelling that he doesn't know how things work and threatens to beat him up right there. Just then, a friendly recruit steps in to defend him and tells the bully to go back to training. The attacker tells him to mind his own business, but he just smirks and says to ignore the idiot, so Damien calmly agrees and walks off with him. As he's leaving, Damien stops and asks the bully which platoon he's from. The guy reveals that he's in the 4th platoon. Damien flashes a sly grin and says he'll remember that, promising they'll meet again during the big competition. With this, the dark-haired boy who saved Damien follows him eagerly, curious whether he's really the famous Damien everyone talks about. He explains that he's heard a lot about him through Apple, including his first-place finish in the trials. He introduces himself as Gerard, the 3rd platoon's leader, and says he's excited to see Damien's skills firsthand. Back at the barracks, our boy steps in and instantly grabs everyone's attention. Curious about what just went down in that meeting, they all lean in as he lays out the plan. In a week, there's a competition between platoons, and he fully intends to secure first place, hyping the group up by clapping his hands together. Then he gets more serious, revealing there's a much bigger priority, crushing the 4th platoon completely. With a sharp, focused look, he makes it clear he specifically wants to take down their leader in battle. As the competition draws closer, the whole camp's atmosphere begins to change. The instructor gathers everyone and announces that he's about to teach an important battle formation, adding that the top performers will earn valuable bonus points. Hearing that, Damien smirks. If the others want those points, they can try, but he's planning to take them himself. With that, the instructor demonstrates the wedge formation designed to punch straight through enemy lines with overwhelming force. Hearing that, our boy with his past battle experience knows that it's vulnerable to a strong frontal counterattack, however he is confident in Kyle that he can tank it all in front. The instructor then splits everyone into 2 groups for a live practice match. Damien immediately sends Kyle to the opposing team and he gladly accepts, determined not to lose. Meanwhile, the boy gathers his own squad to go over the strategy. When someone asks how he knows so much about formations, he casually says he learned everything from his late father. Next, Damien quietly shares his real plan. He tells his team to mirror the enemy's formation the moment they advance. The clever strategy instantly boosts everyone's confidence. He places his strongest fighter right behind him and assigns the smallest members to guard the flanks, ordering everyone to keep their shields raised to protect their heads. Soon, the enemy also locks into a fully defensive formation. Seeing that, Damien tells his squad to keep the pressure on, confident that one solid impact will break their line. With a single command, the practice battle begins. The 2 teams charge straight at each other. The opposing squad moves in perfect sync, and Damien silently gives them credit for not hesitating for even a second as they rapidly close the distance. At the last moment, Damien orders his team to push forward together. The tension reaches its peak as both formations are about to collide. Just then, Damien secretly activates his hidden mana shield, preparing for the impact, while the opposing leader unleashes his full power to force his way through. Their mana clashes head-on, sending a powerful gust of wind sweeping across the training yard. Doing that, the boy yells, orders to his team, demanding they focus their pressure on the enemy's weak spots. The strategy works like a charm, leaving the opposing unit in complete panic as they scramble around without a clue. Spotting the opening, Damien realizes it is the perfect moment for their final push. He signals everyone to charge at once, using their training spears to break the enemy formation. The spears sweep out the defenders' legs, sending them crashing on the dirt. Watching his squad collapse into a chaotic pile, Kyle loses his cool and screams at them to get back up. Realizing they are about to lose, the heavy guy makes one last desperate charge to turn the tide. Before he can even take a step, Damien pops up right in front of his face, serving as a friendly reminder of who holds the real power. Kyle grits his teeth and demands the kid move out of his way. Instead of backing down, Damien smoothly dodges the attack with a smirk, playfully asking if he honestly thought he would just let him pass. The dodge sends the big guy stumbling forward, completely throwing off his balance. Damien follows up with a clean, decisive strike that sends him flying onto the ground, officially ending the fight. He even pauses to admire the man's massive build, casually noting that Kyle needs to use his muscle a bit smarter next time. Watching the whole show from a distance, Raymond is thoroughly impressed. He realizes the kid is even more skilled than the rumor suggested, finding it hard to believe someone so young can lead with such ease. The assistant instructor steps in, shouting to end the combat session and declaring Damien's team the official winners. Damien warmly congratulates his squad, while Kyle approaches with newfound respect, promising to win their next rematch. He then asks what strategy they used to stay so focused under pressure. The rest of the squad joins in, excitedly discussing how they want to use that exact tactic in the upcoming grand tournament. A while later, Damien looks around, thinking the overall vibe in the camp is top tier, as even the recruits who used to dodge hard workouts are now practicing on their own to level up. Suddenly, he overhears nearby recruits talking trash about him as a leader. He notices these people staring and whispering behind his back. They are mocking how someone so small could lead an entire platoon. Hearing that, Damien's squad members instantly lose their tempers over the disrespect, angrily asking if the bullies are really that pathetic. The rowdy bully leader doubles down, snickering that Damien is just playing dress-up as a real leader. Damien glares back with a completely deadpan expression, silently wondering if this guy is begging for a beatdown. He tries to avoid an unnecessary fight, but his teammates are so furious that their faces turn red. Damien blinks in surprise as his squad steps up, realizing there is no way they are letting this insult slide. Especially the big guy, Kyle, who starts yelling, vowing to crush them right there in the courtyard. He shoots them a really enraged look and asks Damien if this crazy bunch is really the platoon he mentioned earlier. Our boy can only let out a quiet sigh before awkwardly confirming that they are. Fueled by pure spite, the squad immediately swears to wipe out every rival team in the competition. They even give up their free time to train like complete maniacs. Watching them march away, Damien realizes they fell for the bait far too easily. Still, he has to admit their sudden determination might actually help them. Meanwhile, back inside the barracks office, Instructor Raymond reports everything to Captain Varys. As the captain flips through a stack of documents, he asks whether any recruits have stood out so far. Raymond confirms that while there are a few promising talents, 2 young men are clearly on another level. Raising an eyebrow, Varys points out how young they are and notes that both naturally manipulate mana like seasoned veterans. Curious, he asks about their backgrounds, but Raymond explains that neither of them comes from a noble family. Hearing that, Varys knows that's unusual because commoners rarely receive advanced mana training due to its enormous cost. What makes things even stranger is how plain the records for Damian and his rival, Apple, appear, instantly making them suspicious. Changing the subject, Varys brings up the recent incident at camp, and Raymond explains that Damian was right in the middle of it. Since the kid is so small, other platoons tried to push him around. However, the plan completely backfired because the disrespect only made Damian's platoon unite even more under his leadership. Finding the whole situation amusing, the captain calls Raymond close to him and comes up with a brutal plan to see how the recruits handle extreme pressure. As he quietly explains the details to Raymond, the instructor can't help but worry the idea might be going too far. Even so, Varys insists that only a harsh trial will reveal everyone's true limits. Without another thought, he orders the training difficulty for 1st and 4th platoon to be pushed to the maximum. Later that evening, the recruits return to the quarters and immediately begin complaining about the ridiculous punishment training that appeared out of nowhere. One guy grumbles about the brutal low-crawl obstacle course being added to their daily routine, while Kyle asks in complete disbelief if this is supposed to be some kind of joke. Damian, however, stays quiet as he carefully studies the new exercise. He quickly realizes the higher-ups are trying to break everyone's spirit, but he also knows complaining won't solve anything. Getting to his feet, he stretches before asking the others if they joined the military just to fool around. He explains that although the low-crawl course is absolute torture, it will build their stamina far better than any other drill. Hearing that, the complaints immediately die down. Damian then smiles warmly and promises to help everyone with it, and urges them to try their best. One recruit nervously admits he's afraid they will make them do it on sharp gravel next, but his friend simply laughs and reminds him that the army isn't known for handing out soft mattresses. Hearing that, Kyle starts wondering how someone so young sounds so experienced, and asks if Damian has done this before. Our boy casually nods in his mind, and the memories of his previous life flash through his mind, reminding him of all the times he crawled through mud just to survive. Smiling to himself, he realizes the others have no idea what this drill is really meant to accomplish. Crawling beneath low barbed wire wears soldiers down physically while leaving them covered in cuts, creating enough frustration to slowly destroy a team's unity. Damian understands that the commanders are actually testing which platoon can stick together despite constant misery. Refusing to let them fall into that trap, he tells everyone to grab a few extra pairs of socks from their supply kits. The room instantly fills with confused stares since nobody can figure out how ordinary cotton socks could possibly help them survive such a brutal course. Damian simply grins, promising they'll soon find out why those socks might become their biggest lifesaver. The following morning, the recruits gather in front of the crawling course where Officer Nilsson is already waiting. After introducing himself, he orders his assistant to demonstrate the proper technique. The assistant drops onto the muddy ground and smoothly performs the textbook crawling motion using opposite limbs. Once the demonstration is over, Nilsson gestures toward the field covered in sharp rocks and asks if everyone is ready. The squad answers with an enthusiastic roar, their determination written all over their faces. Shrugging, Nilsson gives the signal for the first group to begin. Without hesitation, the recruits dive onto the course and charge across the jagged terrain at incredible speed. Watching them, Nilsson can't help but wonder why the captain introduced such a brutal exercise so early in training. He fully expects the boys to start screaming in pain within seconds. Instead, his eyes widen in disbelief. Rather than struggling, the recruits fly across the obstacle like seasoned veterans without letting out a single complaint. Nilsson stands there frozen until another rookie snaps him back to reality by announcing that the second group is ready. Still stunned, he barely manages to call out the next start signal. Once again, the recruits burst forward with unbelievable energy, gliding over the rough terrain so effortlessly that Nilsson's jaws practically hit the floor. Seeing his reaction, our boy smiles, knowing it might be the first time he's ever witnessed something like that. A moment later, Kyle runs over and excitedly praises Damian for coming up with such a brilliant idea. Our boy explains that using extra socks as makeshift knee and elbow pads absorbed most of the impact from the sharp rocks. The squad erupts into cheers, celebrating their injury-free run while wondering if Damian is a genius. Before the celebration can continue, Officer Nilsson grabs a megaphone and orders everyone back to the barracks immediately. On the way back, Kyle asks where Damian learned such a clever trick. The boy casually replies that he picked it up from his late father before jokingly revealing there was one important catch. The trick only worked as long as the head instructor never found out, because if he did, the entire platoon will be doing 100 extra crawling laps for cheating. Kyle laughs so hard he can barely breathe before playfully smacking Damian on the back. The boy simply chuckles and shifts his attention to the next phase of training, eager to finally learn the kingdom's famous spear techniques. Although nobles often looked down on the style, it was considered a masterpiece when mastered correctly. Having already perfected its theory in his previous life, Damien smiles as memories of his legendary old master come flooding back. Wondering if the old man is still alive somewhere, he quietly promises himself that one day he'll find him again. Later that evening, the bully platoon limps back into the barracks, groaning in agony after finishing the crawl. Platoon has finally completed their laps, but then notices something strange happening farther down the hallway. There, chaos erupts as the exhausted members of the platoon suddenly turn against their own leader. Completely drained by the brutal training, they end up trashing him. Watching safely from the side, Damien's squad can't help laughing as they realize they would have been in exactly the same condition without the boy's clever sock trick. The bruised platoon leader eventually notices Damien's squad looking perfectly fresh, instantly sending him into a blind rage. Convinced they used some dirty trick, he blames them for getting everyone else punished even more. Clenching his fists, he glares at them with burning hatred before swearing to destroy every member of Damien's squad during the upcoming tournament. Damien, however, remains completely calm, keeping his attention fixed on his own plans. Finally, the day of the platoon tournament arrives. All 4 platoons line up neatly across the main courtyard, waiting for the officers to announce the opening matchups. Leaning closer, Kyle stares at Damien with a puzzled expression, insisting he somehow looks different than he did a week ago. After studying him for a moment, he wonders if Damien has actually grown taller before reassuring himself that the kid is probably still going through a growth spurt. The nearby recruits immediately tease Kyle for paying so much attention to another guy's height. Secretly though, Damien is caught off guard, wondering if the big guy somehow sensed the new aura surrounding him. The previous night, Damien successfully advanced his mana control to the 2nd tier, greatly increasing his energy reserves. After all the grueling training, he had finally achieved exactly what he wanted. Bringing his attention back to the tournament, he looks at Kyle and declares that nothing less than a complete victory will satisfy him. He knows the top 5 recruits will earn the right to choose any magical artifact from the elite military armory. While most winners will rush toward flashy low-tier weapons, Damien has his eyes on something far more valuable, a plain-looking magic ring he remembers from his previous life. Hidden behind its ordinary appearance is a permanent passive ability powerful enough to rival an S-rank artifact. To make sure his rival Apple doesn't claim it first, Damien knows his platoon must finish in first place. With this, he asks whether Kyle's really that confident, and he answers that he sure is. Slamming his hands together, Kyle shouts that their leader is about to dominate the battlefield and claim the top spot. The rest of the platoon erupts into a deafening cheer, proudly declaring they're ready for victory. Standing confidently at the front, Damien smiles as the parade continues. Then, without warning, the head officer loudly announces the first matchup. With determination burning in their eyes, Damien and his squad step forward together, fully prepared to unleash absolute mayhem on the battlefield. Before they can charge at each other, the instructor steps in and explains that they'll take turns attacking and defending, making it a total of 2 sparring rounds. With that, he orders Platoon 2 to take the first attack, while Damien's team prepares to defend. Hearing the command, Damien reminds everyone to stick to the plan, especially Kyle, who needs to push back the enemies in front of him when he gives the signal. Kyle is ready to throw his full power into the shield with total confidence, and the moment the signal drops, both sides go barreling toward their inevitable collision. The second platoon comes charging in screaming, fully set on crushing the boys' team, but the defenders hold their line like an absolute iron wall, refusing to budge no matter how hard the attackers try to break through. From a distance, the officer watches Damien's team, assuming they're just playing turtle defense, but then he hears the order go out to push everyone forward at once, and things get wild. Kyle channels his entire power straight into his shield and slams it into the enemy front line like a battering ram. The enemy captain loses it, screaming in frustration as his front line gets shoved back in total disarray. Seeing all this, Damien orders Kyle to push even harder to lock in the win, and the big guy unloads everything he's got, plowing through the enemy line and sending them flying to the ground. The enemy soldiers collapse in desperation, shocked that this monster of a guy is doing that just by his shoulders. Meanwhile, Kyle quickly repositions his best guy right beside him so they can keep pressing forward, and with the team pushing at full strength, the enemy's defensive line collapses in the most embarrassing way possible. The rival leader is left in shock, wondering how this kid's squad has this level of coordination on the battlefield. Just then, Damien spots the crack in the enemy formation and gives the order for the final push, and just like that, the opposing team gets steamrolled once and for all. The match is wrapping up fast, and the instructor asks if the team got some kind of secret extra training, but the drill instructor admits he's just as surprised as everyone else, calling the rookie's performance basically on par with the kingdom's elite soldiers. Watching the team celebrate, the officer realizes the whole tactical masterclass boils down to one thing: Damien's precise and instinctive command over his squad of rookies. Turns out the platoon had been voluntarily grinding hard every single night under Damien's guidance, and during the actual fight, they executed his drilled movements with pinpoint accuracy. The veteran officer smiles wide, fully convinced the kid has proven his leadership talent through sheer skill. Back in the fight, spotting the right moment, Damien yells out a warning that this is their big shot to secure the win. Kyle flashes a confident grin and locks in on capturing the main objective to lock in the points. Seeing his creepy grin, the rival captain screams like an absolute madman, ordering his team to forget the attack entirely and just focus on stopping Kyle's advance. Meanwhile, Damien's allies quickly form an unbreakable wall of shields around their friend. Kyle taunts the enemy, who are left completely frozen watching the giant refuse to budge an inch, and he warns them that they've walked straight into the trap that was planned from the start. Realizing they've been completely played, the enemy team goes pale with fear. Suddenly, a fast-moving shadow launches straight toward the main objective on the battlefield, with Damien using Kyle's back as a launch pad and vaulting clean over the defensive wall. He goes flying through the air, holding the victory flag right in front of the stunned enemy captain, landing with surgical precision and taking down the enemy leader in one clean, flashy hit. With this, our boy grabs the enemy's flag, and the officers officially call time on the match. Damien's whole platoon erupts, screaming and celebrating their well-earned win. The officer, clearly impressed, admits the team is on track to sweep the whole thing, but then cryptically warns that the competition is far from settled. The commander points across the yard to another squad standing out from the rest, questioning whether they'll actually be a real challenge for Damien's platoon. Meanwhile, the 4th platoon's furious leader stomps the ground, ranting about his fight, clearly annoyed that the team he only meant to use as a warm-up is now giving him real trouble. His soldiers get more desperate, realizing they can't break through the enemy's rock-solid defense. The frustrated leader orders everyone to strictly stick to his plan, but one member just keeps yelling commands from the back without actually helping, exposing the fact that this squad has zero teamwork. Apple's friend notices the enemy getting worn out and asks him if they should go on the attack, but the blonde kid shuts that idea down, saying they just need to hold their defensive position since the opponents will collapse on their own over time. The guy, genuinely impressed that a 14-year-old can read the battlefield like that, agrees without pushback, quietly thinking this kid is definitely not your average kid and wondering about his background. The 3rd platoon holds its defensive stance against the enemy's push, and the coordinated defense stays rock solid without a single crack. The enemy captain gets heated, accusing them of being cowards who only know how to hide behind a wall and talk trash. Meanwhile, Apple's platoon leader notices that the opponent's energy is basically gone. He figures the smart move now is to bait them into losing their patience for good. Exhausted and completely gassed, one of the 4th platoon's guys can't hold on anymore and loses it. Sensing the enemy is finally breaking, the leader screams for an immediate counterattack, and the defenders charge forward in a powerful strike to exploit the crack in the enemy's line. The attackers watch their formation get wrecked and collapse in total desperation. The team leader shouts Apple's name and gives him the green light to secure the win. The gifted blonde kid takes off across the field at full speed, ready to close this thing out, and leaps straight at the enemy's defensive wall. He soars gracefully clean over the entire enemy formation, leaving them frozen in shock. He strikes down the opposing line in quick succession, dropping everyone in one continuous sweep and securing the objective. The enemy captain is left in total despair, dreading how they're supposed to face the 1st platoon next. Just then, the 4th platoon glances over at Damien, who watches calmly from across the yard, breathing easy, knowing what's coming as the officer announces the 3rd platoon's win over the megaphone. Apple celebrates in his friend's arms, while Damien mentally notes that this blonde kid is going to be a genuinely tough opponent. Walking back, he already knows the next real challenge is going to be against the 3rd platoon, and with a confident smirk locked in his memory, he can't wait to face his friend again. The instructor loudly announces that break time is over and orders everyone to gather immediately on the training field. Hearing that, Damien warns that the 4th squad's opponents are going to be extra desperate to make something happen against them. Kyle is fired up to face his opponent since he's already picked his target, but Damien requests him to just clear the path for him. The boy then briefs his squad that the enemy are exhausted and have zero teamwork. He flashes a sly smile, promising he won't hold back and plans to crush them fast and completely. Kyle laughs with excitement, ready for the fight, warning that whoever messed with them is about to pay a heavy price for the disrespect. Hearing that, our boy orders the front line to stay fully focused so they can end this match in the blink of an eye. His teammates grin from ear to ear and respond immediately. With this, the 1st platoon locks their shields together, and the boy steps up to lead the charge. On the other side, the enemy prepares too, though the stress is written all over their faces. The match kicks off, and it becomes a straightforward, decisive clash right from the start. Damien's soldiers move as one unit from the very first second, pushing forward with much better coordination than their rivals. Damien also notices the enemy's formation is weak and scattered, making a direct assault way too easy, but he still wants a clean, dominant win so the enemy never dares to challenge them again. As he is thinking, Kyle suddenly charges the enemy's shield line like an aggressive predator, sending shockwaves through their defense lines. The enemy captain is completely desperate, unable to stop the enemy's advance, and screams for his team to reorganize the defense to protect the flag. Out of nowhere, Damien vaults clean over the shield wall and jumps right in front of the panicking enemy captain. The rival captain looks up in shock to see the kid towering right above his head. The young boy slams his kick into the opponent's arm, making him scream out in pain before dropping to his knees, while Damien lands the move with total calm and style. The defeated guy looks at him with rage-filled eyes, humiliated, and complains bitterly. He reaches for his training weapon again, asking if this kid actually thinks he's some kind of weak training dummy, insisting he could easily beat this young commander in a straight one-on-one fight. Damien effortlessly dodges the spear strike, unbothered by how painfully predictable the attack was. He then grabs the opponent's weapon with his bare hands, basically asking if that's really all the strength he's got, then rips it clean out of the enemy's grip, leaving him completely stunned. Doing that, the boy tosses his shield aside too, unimpressed that he lost his weapons that easily. With one precise move, he lands a decisive strike that drops the guy flat on the ground. The young boy stands over the fallen opponent, pointing out that losing your weapon on the battlefield is basically being killed. With this, he charges energy into his fist, warning that this lesson might just save the guy's life someday, then finishes him off with one final, powerful blow. Doing that, he feels like that fight was honestly way too easy. The officer checks the condition of the defeated squad and determines they're no longer fit to continue, getting ready to announce the results of this big match. The officials declare a dominant win for the platoon, and the recruits erupt in celebration. Kyle admits from the heart that the win felt incredibly satisfying, and they praises Damien's outstanding leadership. The other squads are left stunned watching the strategies of a leader who is only 13 years old. The instructor also praises his abilities, admitting the kid might genuinely be more talented than the trainers themselves, and the experienced Raymond smiles in agreement. Just as they're talking, a deep voice from behind asks if something interesting is going on. As everyone turns around, they see the long-haired instructor, Leonhardt Belkian. Every single recruit and officer on the field instantly snaps to attention and throws up a sharp military salute. The Great Master turns to the commander and double-checks if the kid everyone's been raving about is really out there right now. The officer answers with a proud grin and confirms that that is the kid. Leonhardt watches the scene unfold with a small, knowing smile, quietly pleased that a genuinely talented young recruit has joined the ranks. Meanwhile, back in the barracks, a soldier comes sprinting in completely out of breath, excitedly blurting out that a high-ranking officer showed up for a surprise inspection. Another recruit mentions that the 3rd Division instructor's arrival made every officer nearby snap into a formal salute immediately. Damien's ears perk up with curiosity while his roommate tries hard to remember the guy's name, guessing wildly before correcting himself to Leonhardt. The instant that name clicks, the boy jumps straight up and bolts for the door. His roommate is left standing there completely confused, yelling after him, but Damien tears down the long hallways at full speed, needing to confirm with his own eyes if this person is genuinely from his past. He skids to a stop mid-run when he spots someone walking calmly straight ahead in the hallway. The blindfolded figure senses his presence immediately and casually asks if he's the recruit from earlier that morning. The senior officer standing beside him smiles and reveals they were actually on their way to go meet Damien specifically. The boy snaps into a proper stance and delivers a sharp, textbook salute, confirming his name right away when asked. Seeing this man again clearly hits different, since he used to be his mentor and guide back in a past life, shaping a huge part of who he is now. Back in the hallway, Leonhardt stares at the boy, thinking about how highly Raymond praised him. However, now that he's seeing Damien in person, he can tell that the boy has decent mana training. He compliments the spear skills he witnessed earlier and asks which unit the kid plans to join once training wraps up. The boy hesitates for a beat, then flashes a confident smile and reveals that he plans to join the infamous Neocalit's unit. That answer completely blindsides both the master and the officer, since that unit has a reputation for facing terrifying creatures with a brutally low survival rate. Leonhardt questions why he'd choose the hardest path, and the boy simply explains that he wants to get stronger without any shortcuts. Impressed, Leonhardt offers him an official knight's recommendation letter on the spot, stunning the officer nearby. However, the boy politely declines it, explaining he made his decision, but from the inside he is doing this specifically to reunite with someone extremely important to him down the line. The master respects his rock-solid resolve and tells him to head back to his quarters. The officer looks visibly troubled, pointing out that the boy just turned down an opportunity reserved for the elite, but Leonhardt just brushed it off, ordering that the boy be left alone, confident their paths are destined to cross again. The next day rolls around, and the first match is between Platoon 1 and 3. Damien hypes up his teammates beforehand, reminding them with total confidence that no team in the camp stands a real chance against them now. The soldiers grin back, fully aware that grueling training sessions have turned them into a legitimate powerhouse. The young leader tells everyone to just beat the enemy the same way they always do, and both squads take their positions. He yells out the order for everyone to lock their shields together into one solid wall. The opposing team notices that Platoon 1 is using the same crowd favorite formation, and their platoon leader warns young Apple that his role is going to be critical. With that, he orders everyone to advance, and the squad charges forward in near perfect sync until both formations crash into each other. Meanwhile, Damien shouts for his team to keep pushing at full strength, while the opposing leader grows concerned after noticing that the enemy's attack pattern seems strangely predictable. His side struggles to hold that pressure back, and he calls for Apple to do his thing. Suddenly, the opposing squad opens up its formation to let Apple through. Seeing that, Damien is confused about what they're planning. To everyone's surprise, Apple walks straight up to their defenses and shatters a few wooden shields with a single swing of his spear. Seeing the attack succeed, the third platoon leader orders everyone to break through. However, they fail to notice that the tank of the team, Kyle, is still standing there. Wielding two massive shields, he blocks the entire advance by himself. Seeing this, Damien is relieved they have him on their side, though he can't help but be impressed by Apple's incredible spear skills. On the other side, the young blonde is surprised that someone this strong is training in the third center. However, he's even more shocked when he notices Kyle glaring at him from the front line. This is because, before the fight, Damien specifically told Kyle to keep his eyes on Apple since he was their biggest threat. Now, Kyle is doing exactly that, which starts to worry the third platoon leader. He asks Apple if he can break through Kyle's defense, and the young boy says they have no other choice. He knows brute force won't be enough, so mana is his only option. With that, Apple channels mana into his spear and leaps straight at Kyle. Kyle manages to block the attack, but the mana-infused strike is so powerful that he struggles to hold his ground. Just when Kyle thinks he's held on, his shield shatters. Seeing the opening, Apple immediately thrusts his spear toward Kyle. However, before the attack can land, Damien steps in with his own mana-infused shield and blocks it. Seeing Damien, Apple can't help but smile. Just then, the instructor calls time, announcing that the third platoon has failed to capture the flag. Despite losing the round, Apple is surprised that Kyle managed to withstand his attacks. Meanwhile, back on Damien's side, Kyle is badly beaten up, and Damien immediately tells him to sit out the next round. Even in his condition, Kyle insists he's fine. However, Damien tells him to rest because they still have training left, and if he pushes himself any further, he won't make it through. Instead, Damien assigns him to guard the flag, saying he's the only one he trusts with that job. Touched by the confidence Damien has in him, Kyle agrees, determined not to let anyone even get close to the flag. With that, the instructor announces that it's now the first platoon's turn to attack. Looking at his exhausted team, Damien realizes they'll have to finish this within 5 minutes. A moment later, both teams line up face to face, ready for the final round. Looking at the opposing team, Damien knows this is the final match. Having done everything he can as a squad leader, he understands that now is the time to make a real impression on the instructors. He realizes that if he succeeds against Apple's squad, he is guaranteed to secure his spot as a top trainee. Observing Apple, he notices that his rival looks visibly exhausted, making it highly likely that he will stay back to defend the flag, which will prove easy to crack. Accepting that a direct, head-on confrontation is completely unavoidable, Damien readies himself for the clash. With all preparations settled, the instructor calls out for the competition to begin. The moment the match starts, Damien orders his team to follow his lead and flashes forward at high speed, with his squad maintaining tight formation right behind him. Seeing them close the distance so rapidly leaves the opposing team in complete disbelief. Realizing the charge is no joke, the third platoon leader shouts for everyone to stand firm and stay alert for the incoming squad leader. However, Damien knows their defensive effort is totally useless. Channeling a powerful surge of mana into his spear, he thrusts directly through their frontline shields. The shockwave leaves the defenders stunned, and before they can recover, Damien swings his weapon in a wide sweep, sending them scattering like bowling pins. Exploiting the breach immediately, Damien orders his team to go all in on the opening. The opposing squad panics, desperately shouting to stop the advance before it is too late. Moving with incredible agility, Damien effortlessly slips past multiple incoming attackers and sweeps them off their feet with a single fluid strike. Seeing their massive progress, Kyle gets hype, while the opposing team leader breaks into a cold sweat watching Damien push forward so relentlessly. Apple realizes that Damien is the sole reason for this overwhelming momentum, and as long as they keep him in check, the first squad will never get their hands on the flag. Taking the initiative himself, Apple hands the flag off to his platoon leader and announces that he will personally step up to stop Damien. The leader is shocked by his sheer resolve, while Damien watches his rival approach, fully aware that this is the final showdown against the future great general, Apple Van Striol. Apple leaps forward to attack, but our boy quickly realizes his opponent is playing it clever. The initial strike is merely a feint, designed to set up a devastating second blow. Right as he executes the real swing, Damien predicts the trajectory and cleanly blocks it with his spear. The blonde warrior recoils in shock from the heavy impact, while Damien internally urges Apple to stop holding back and give it everything he has left. Loading his spear with an intense charge of mana, Damien leaps directly at Apple with full force. Apple attempts to block the incoming blow in the exact same manner, but to his utter horror, his spear starts visibly cracking under the pressure. He stands there, completely shocked by the sheer density of Damien's mana, wondering how an apparent commoner could control energy with such incredible skill, or if Damien is actually someone like himself. Knowing he holds the definitive upper hand, Damien tells Apple to wrap this up quickly. He charges forward one final time, challenging his rival to block the strike if he can. As Damien's mana-infused spear swings down, Apple desperately tries to hold the line, but his weapon completely shatters under the force, sending him flying backward to crash hard onto the ground. With his opponent down, Damien rushes straight toward the flag to capture it, leaving the blonde boy watching helplessly from the dirt. In the blink of an eye, Damien claims the flag and secures total victory for his team. Damien walks over and pulls Apple back up to his feet, thanking him for a genuinely tough match. Still processing the loss, Apple confidently declares that he will not lose the next time they face off. Damien responds with a smile, telling Apple that he actually wants him on his team next time because taking him down twice would be way too difficult. As they head back, Damien still cannot believe he defeated the famous Apple Van Striol, realizing that this defeat might turn Apple into even more of a monster down the road. But for now, the victory belongs to his squad. Watching the team celebrate wildly from the sidelines, the instructor confirms that the first platoon successfully passed, noting that he will make sure they finish all the grueling training scheduled for the upcoming week. Seeing the recruits so happy, Leonhardt smiles warmly, suggesting they enjoy their sweet victory for now, hinting that the road ahead is only going to get much harder. Inside the barracks, the first platoon is shocked to the core seeing the table filled with steak and other lavish dishes. It's a small victory reward, making them realize their efforts were worth it after all. Seeing them eat like monsters, Damien knows they were all pretty exhausted, and this also looks like their first chance in a while to stuff themselves with a meal like that. Ignoring it, the boy looks around for Apple, but realizes he's gone, wishing he could have talked to him a bit more. Just as he's lost in thought, the instructor Raymond asks if he can join them, surprising the first platoon guys. He came over to persuade Damien about the knighthood offer Leonhardt gave him, but the boy confirms he still has the same answer. The instructor respects his decision, but then reveals that instructor Leonhardt also offered Apple a shot in the knight orders as well. He asks Damien what he thinks the blonde kid chose, to which Damien replies that he'll respect whatever the boy picked, since it's his life, not his. This answer makes the instructor laugh, jokingly calling him a boring kid. Inside, though, the instructor knows he came there to see if the boy had changed his mind, but getting the same answer back, he has no choice but to wish him the best of luck on his path. With that, he raises a toast for their harsh 3 weeks of training, reminding them they still have training tomorrow and wishes that they stay hard and strong. All the recruits join in, and just like that, time passes quickly. The third and final week of training arrives, and all the recruits gather on the training grounds for spear drills. Seeing them train so hard, Damien is impressed by their attitude. It's not just in his own platoon either. There's a change across the entire 3rd Training Center, as the platoon competition proved to be a great catalyst. After some time, the instructor gives them a 5-minute break, during which Kyle drops the news that the 4th platoon was completely dismantled after the competition, and tons of them are getting discharged. Kyle starts laughing like a maniac, mentioning that the 4th platoon leader was the first to leave. Damien shares his excitement, but reminds him that's not what they need to focus on right now. He tells the group they still have to raise their individual scores if they want to get into the unit of their choice, since everyone wants to end up where they prefer. The ultimate cushy job these soldiers dream of is becoming a royal administrative soldier, but only 30 out of 160 can even apply, and due to the heavy competition, only a third of those actually make the cut. Hearing that, Kyle realizes it sounds insanely competitive, which Damien confirms is because everyone is aiming for it. Hearing that, Kyle starts shouting, thinking Damien is also going for the same position, but the boy quickly clears the air and asks why Kyle would even want to be an administrative soldier, since he'd just end up cooped up in a palace all day. Kyle, feeling a bit unsure, claims that since everyone wants to go there, it must be the best spot, so why shouldn't they? However, the boy assures him that someone as tanky and aggressive as Kyle wouldn't survive even a month in a place like that. When asked about himself, Damien reveals he's planning to join the Neoclitz unit, making everyone's jaw drop in shock. Kyle even thinks he's lost his mind, but the boy gives him a solid kick to the leg to shut him up. This makes Kyle realize Damien is actually dead serious, which is exactly why he likes him. With all the chatter, the 5-minute break flies by and they get right back to training. Just like that, the last training week wraps up in a blink, and soon everyone is sitting at the graduation ceremony. Our boy can't believe it's already ending. It feels like just yesterday he joined. The company commander addresses them, wishing them the best of luck for their future and hoping they contribute well to their kingdom. As soon as he finishes, Instructor Raymond shoots Damien a pointed look, prompting him and his squad to instantly salute and shout glory to the kingdom. With this, Raymond calls out the top 5 honor trainees of the camp. Standing at the very top is the 1st platoon acting leader, Damien. Right next to him at number 2 is Apple from the 3rd platoon, with Kyle taking 3rd place, and so on. He orders the top 5 to follow him, and leads them to the armory to pick a weapon of their choice. They start with the number 1 trainee, Damien, opening the door for him first. As the boy walks in, he's impressed by how neatly organized the weapons are. He looks around for something rare, but soon realizes there might not be anything special in here, so he should just grab whatever he can. However, he can't get his mind off a specific ring he wanted, one he had heard about from the guys at the 3rd training center. The ring grants temporary invisibility when fueled by mana. Taking it, Damien knows that except for Apple, none of the other recruits will even notice it since it requires mana to operate. With that, it's Apple's turn, and our boy can't help but wonder if Apple took that ring in his past life, curious to see what he'll emerge with this time. But as soon as he enters, he comes right back out in a flash, shocking Damien with how fast he made up his mind. While Damien is processing this, Kyle asks what he grabbed, but the boy brushes it off as nothing. Still, he grows concerned. The seal Apple brought out is the crest of a fallen kingdom from long ago, leaving him to wonder if he might be connected to that ruined kingdom after all. As everyone takes one item from the armory, the instructor closes it, but as soon as he sees what Apple got, he looks a bit confused. However, Apple claims he picked it because he felt divine power coming from it, to which the instructor smiles, revealing it makes sense because it has a seal to ward off evil. He then turns to the Platoon 3 leader, who got a spear, and Kyle, who got a shield, praising both of them. However, when he turns toward Damien, he double-checks if this is really what he wants, revealing that this ring only slightly reduces the wearer's weight. Our boy is a bit confused at first, but when he puts it on, he's pretty impressed by how much lighter he feels and moves. Damien confirms it's actually pretty good, but on the inside, he's beyond hyped about getting both invisibility and weight reduction on a single ring. With that out of the way, they head back to apply for their preferred units, and without even hesitating, our boy writes down the Neocalit's unit on his form. Seeing this, the instructor feels bad for Damien, knowing that if he had chosen knighthood, he would have been unstoppable. He warns the boy that the unit is extremely dangerous, but Damien remains confident he'll be just fine. Seeing his resolve, the instructor feels relieved and reveals that Damien will get his assignment notice in a few days. With that, our boy leaves, but he can't help feeling a bit bittersweet about leaving this place behind. However, as he's lost in thought, an angry voice calls out to him. It's Apple, who seems pretty enraged. He calls him out for refusing to join the knighthood despite his top-tier skills, revealing that he himself is joining the Knight Order after receiving a letter from instructor Leon Hark. Hearing this, Damien is all smiles and calls it a wise choice, but the boy gets annoyed at him for turning it down while calling his own decision a good one. He then brings up the dangerous unit Damien applied for and wishes him a safe journey. With that, they both express hope to see each other again, and Apple walks off, leaving Damien wondering if the kid realizes he's destined to become a great general in the future. Either way, our boy knows there's also a chance Apple might become something even bigger, so he wishes him the best regardless. Next, he heads to his dorm to say goodbye to his squad. As soon as he enters, Kyle rushes over, relieved that Damien came back to bid farewell. With a mischievous grin, the big guy says he's confident they'll meet again soon, which leaves Damien feeling a little uneasy. Kyle then pushes him to say his final words to the squad, and with a warm smile, Damien thanks everyone and wishes them luck. Hearing that, the whole squad starts cheering, and our boy steps outside to begin his new journey. However, just as he steps out, the blonde girl named Deal from the Hamel Merchant Guild greets him. Bringing him to the guild, she breaks down exactly how his funds will be used, along with the projected 3% sales return. Looking over the breakdown, our boy finds it pretty interesting and has no objections whatsoever. He confirms they can proceed and mentions that an employee will handle the insurance payout under his name. Deal brings up signing the official contract, but our boy assures her that he trusts them to handle everything properly. This level of trust completely shocks the girl, but she's blown away even further when our boy hands over the promised investment gold coins. She notices it's way above the agreed 300 coins. Our boy casually explains that the extra amount is a reward for their honesty and hard work. With tears in her eyes, the girl asks if they should revise the contract for the new funds, but our boy stops her. In his mind, he knows that despite his young age, they treated him with complete professionalism, which deserves this extra bonus. With business settled, the girl asks where Damien is assigned since he finished training, but when he names the unit, her jaw drops. Our boy, with a playful smile, jokes that if he dies out there, the investment will eventually just belong to their guild. This pisses the girl off, and she sternly warns him not to joke about something so serious, surprising our boy, who realizes she's sharper than she looks. With that, she promises that while he's gone, she'll make great use of his funds and bids him farewell. With everything wrapped up, our boy decides to enjoy his remaining time in the city by gorging on Sikh kebabs and sleeping soundly in the street. The next day, he sets off on his journey with his gear packed up in his bag, but to his absolute shock, Kyle comes trailing right behind him. The big guy reminds him that he promised they'd meet again soon, revealing that he also chose the Neocalit's unit just to stick with Damien, hoping they can both do their absolute best out there together. With that, they decide to head out together, but just as they're leaving, someone else arrives, and to Damien's shock, it's DL from the Merchant Guild. Our boy is confused as to what on earth she's doing there, to which she points at a carriage she prepared for him, knowing the unit they're joining is pretty far away. She also packed food and supplies they might need on their way. She reveals she's doing this to return the favor for what he did for them, as their guild always repays its debts. She spent the last 2 days gathering all of it, and wishes them a safe journey ahead. Kyle, seeing how beautiful she is, can't help but stare with his mouth wide open. The girl shyly reveals it's a bit of a side investment in him, which makes Damien laugh since he knows she's just making that up. With that, our boy says his goodbyes, hops into the carriage, and they start their journey. As they head toward their destination, Kyle feels pretty nauseous and blames it on the rough road. Damien, looking outside at the garrison, wonders if they're in her call, though they can't see any residential territory around. The boy calmly reveals it's because of the monsters, so everyone is likely deeper in the Bronzelian forest. Most of Urkel's residents make a living by harvesting a herb called a mancho in the forest, which, when refined, makes a potent painkiller. Almost the entire economy of the village relies on these herbs, so they can't leave even if it's dangerous. Reaching their destination, both of them get off the carriage and head toward the main building. However, as they reach it, Kyle stops in shock at its collapsed, wrecked state. He asks if people actually live there, and even Damien himself can smell the blood in the air. As they're processing this, our boy hears heavy footsteps, and soon a group of Neo-Unit soldiers passes by, carrying tons of injured comrades on their shoulders and backs. Kyle is horrified, mentioning that they all look like ghosts, to which the boy tells him he needs to get used to it, since people in this place fight for survival every single day. Saying that, he recalls his past life as a commander, remembering when he asked his squad about a soldier's most important duty. Everyone had their own answer, but one overly enthusiastic soldier answered that even if he dies, it's doing as much damage as possible. Damien slapped the absolute crap out of him, revealing that the correct answer is simply not dying. He explained that their top priority should always be to survive, and to do that, they need to get strong. Coming back to the present, Damien can still remember their faces, even though every single one of them ended up dying anyway. Putting those dark thoughts aside, he suggests to Kyle that they head inside. Kyle is a bit hesitant, so our boy reminds him that they came here to get stronger, but the big guy points out that the squad that just passed looked like they were in a terrible mood, so they should probably wait. However, our boy ignores him and walks in himself, prompting the big guy to follow him anyway. Meanwhile, a few hours earlier, this Neocalit's unit faced a massive horde of orcs in the forest, and was completely caught off guard because the garrison told them there were only a few. To make matters worse, several of them were already injured, but all they could do was fight for their lives. For a Neo-Unit member sent here to hunt monsters, getting discharged is simply not an option. They either rot in prison, fight off monsters, or end up absolutely mangled in the unit. Inside the barracks, a heated argument breaks out about a fellow soldier begging for a discharge due to his injuries. The unit commander, Jaren, calms everyone down, ordering them to call a doctor and a priest from the temple for now. His men argue that a priest costs way too much, but Jaren pulls out his own personal gold and orders them to use it for the injured soldier. The men are stunned because that gold was Jaren's savings for his mother's surgery, but he lies, claiming she's getting better and doesn't need it right now. Seeing how much he cares for his crew, everyone starts pooling their own gold and silver toward the treatment. One enraged soldier yells at a young rookie, reminding him that he's the youngest and should use his money to replace his worn-out boots instead. But the kid begs to let him help, revealing the soldier got hurt while protecting him. This completely melts the angry soldier, while the leader urges them to hurry up and get the priest. He then asks the young kid how old he is, and it turns out he's only 18, making him the youngest one there. Suddenly, a soldier rushes up to Jaren, announcing that the new recruits have arrived. As soon as the others hear about it, their eyes turn dead serious. Jaren had completely forgotten about the new arrivals because of the battle, so he takes the young kid with him to go greet his new subordinates. With that, our two boys are invited into the office to meet Jaren. Seeing him, Kyle is impressed by his strong personality, though he still feels something is a bit off about him. Just then, Jaren asks to confirm if Damien is really 13 years old. When Damien confirms it, he is shocked. This kid is 5 years younger than their youngest soldier, so why on earth did he choose their unit? Kyle points out that Damien finished as the #1 recruit in the training camp, but Jaren couldn't care less, stating that a training center and this actual unit are two completely different worlds. He then orders one of his men to take the two of them and assign them their spots. They follow the young soldier, who explains on the way that there are no actual ranks in their unit, they just have a commander, and whoever arrived earlier is considered a senior. He leads them to their dorms and tells them to pick a locker, though he casually adds that they probably won't be using them for long. This confuses Kyle, but before he can question it, the guy kicks his leg really hard, revealing that the reason he's still the youngest, even after a whole year, is because everyone who arrived after him has died. Hearing that, Damien stays silent while the guy walks off, telling them to clean the barracks first so he can explain everything else later. After he leaves, Kyle is pretty annoyed by his rude attitude, but Damien just giggles. He remembers this guy from his past life and sees he hasn't changed one bit. He then suggests they start cleaning the barracks and do a thorough job, treating it as their very first mission here. But as he hands Kyle a cleaning rag, the big guy screams at the top of his lungs in frustration. Meanwhile, over at the Neocalit's unit military shop, the young senior is sitting silently, lost in thought. He's always terrified of getting attached to new soldiers who join up. He remembers how every time he made even a slight effort to get to know them, they ended up dying due to their own carelessness. In a brutal war zone like this, a single mistake can cost you your life, and that's just the reality of the Neo unit. Because of this, he stopped caring for his juniors since they all end up dead anyway. Still, the new guys, especially Damien, are stuck on his mind because the kid looked at him earlier as if he already knew him. While he's deep in thought, the man behind the counter reports that he's finished with the repairs. He also mentions seeing two clueless-looking guys earlier and asks if they're the new recruits. He initially thought they were just lost in the garrison, but then realized they were the young soldiers' new successors. This totally embarrasses the senior, and he storms off back to the barracks, ready to teach them both a lesson. However, when he steps inside the barracks, he's rendered speechless. The walls, the floors, everything is shining like brand new. Soon, other seniors gather around, equally shocked, and ask the young soldier if he worked the rookies to the bone. Damien also walks up to him and asks if they did a good job, but seeing the spotless state of the place, the young senior sweats nervously, wondering if this is some kind of passive-aggressive rebellion. As he stands there in shock, Commander Jaren walks in and starts laughing out loud, thoroughly impressed by how clean the barracks look. The other soldiers are stunned seeing him display actual emotion, as he's definitely not known for being like that. The commander calls the new recruits over, asking if they did all this by themselves and why they put in so much effort. Damien simply replies that it was their senior's order, and they were just following instructions. The commander then notices Kyle, realizing with his seasoned battle experience that with just a little bit of polishing, this big guy will be ready for active combat. Still, he can't read the little kid at all. He can't fathom why someone who ranked first in the entire training camp would willingly come to a place like this, wondering what his true motive could be. Brushing those thoughts aside for now, he formally welcomes them, showing respect to his new recruits starting today. As night arrives, the boy goes to sleep and starts dreaming of his past life, remembering a moment when he was lying in bed with his comrade. Lost in thought, the comrade asked Damien if the war will ever end, and Damien replied that it will if they just surrender. The guy then asked him to promise not to die before him, which caught Damien off guard. He never actually answered, but in a way, he kept that promise. His comrade died right in front of him, and Damien outlived him. The haunting dream wakes him up, and unable to fall back asleep, he decides to practice his mana control. He heads into the jungle, but notices someone else is already out there training. To his surprise, it's the young senior, Yahello. Seeing him, our boy realizes Yahello is a total training addict, but he's confused as to why he's using a sword. It doesn't suit his speed-oriented playstyle at all. Damien remembers that even in his past life, it took forever to convince Yahello to switch weapons, so he decides to ignore it for now. He doesn't want to lose the favor he just gained with him and plans to bring it up when the time is right. The next day, the entire unit gathers in front of a massive mountain range for intense physical training. However, before the commander even arrives, the seniors start placing bets on whether the new recruits will survive the day. Everyone bets against them, which pisses Kyle off. He's raging that they're looking down on them for no reason, but deep down, Damien knows the seniors are just used to doing this since nobody ever stops them. With that in mind, Damien steps up and joins the betting himself, surprising the guys. They mock him, asking if a rookie like him even has money to wager. Our boy confirms he does, but says he wants to change the terms of the bet. He confidently claims he's betting on himself to beat everyone in today's training. Hearing that, the guys burst out laughing and accept, adding a condition that if he loses, he has to do their laundry for an entire month. Damien agrees, but adds one more term. Since he's already risking his gold in doing their laundry, if he wins, he wants 1 month of free time reserved strictly for his personal training. This shocks all the seniors, and they start arguing back and forth. Just then, the commander arrives and steps in, agreeing to Damien's terms on the spot. He calls out Yahello, asking if he wants to join the wager, but Yahello is hesitant, not wanting to throw away his entry fee on an obvious outcome. Hearing that, the commander reconfirms that he's approving Damien's free time condition, but adds a twist. If the seniors lose, he will put them all through extra hellish training. This completely enrages the seniors, who turn on Damien, calling him a cocky rookie and daring him to try his absolute best. This provocation is exactly what Damien was aiming for. He isn't doing this just for the free time. He wants to break the gloomy atmosphere of this unit where everyone expects to die any day and instill a sense of hope that they can survive. With the stakes set, the commander announces the start of the session, revealing they have to carry heavy logs all the way up the mountain. Hearing this, the soldiers start complaining that only rookies should have to do this kind of grind, but a sharp shout from the commander gets them moving and they quickly grab their logs to start climbing. On the way up, the seniors grumble about why the commander is putting them through this torture, blaming it on the new guys and feeling confident the rookies will collapse in no time. However, when they look down, the rookies are nowhere to be found, and to their absolute shock, Damien is already miles ahead of them. Having left everyone in the dust, Damien is pleasantly surprised to find that the ring he picked up also lightens the weight of the heavy log he's carrying, making him extra proud of his choice. Looking back, he sees the seniors trailing far behind, though to his surprise, the only one keeping up anywhere near him is Dianel. Dianel, noticing the young boy already near the peak, is genuinely impressed by his speed. Soon enough, our boy reaches the summit, taking first place and completely shocking the commander that even Dianel couldn't beat him. As the rest of the soldiers slowly crawl to the top, the commander announces that the race is over, reminding the losers in a dead serious tone that their hellish punishment training awaits. But right as he's speaking, a soldier calls out to the commander in a panic, pointing toward a red flag raised over the city, signaling a level 1 emergency. The unit quickly gets back, and is briefed that there have been casualties in the Bronzelian forest. The commander asks for the location, to which the reporter reveals that it's herb gatherers who suffered casualties, and they were in a restricted area. Hearing that, the soldiers are enraged because they had already warned the villagers not to go there, while the commander asks about the scale of the damage. The reporter reveals they don't have exact information on that, but knows the gatherers entered with 6 mercenaries. Hearing this, the commander asks his second-in-command, Aaron, how many men they can deploy. Aaron reveals they have 70 men available, excluding the wounded. The commander orders him to leave anyone with minor injuries behind as well, and head out with at least 50 men as fast as possible. As Aaron leaves, the commander grows worried. The intervals between deployments are getting shorter, making him wonder if the forest itself is undergoing a change. After a while, all the soldiers gather and the commander addresses them, but before he can say much, the 2 new recruits call out, requesting to go along. The commander refuses, pointing out that training and actual combat are 2 completely different things, but Damien requests that they just act as porters in the back, and Kyle seconds the idea. Seeing no better options, the commander allows them on one condition: they are not to fight, and he orders them to carry spare weapons for the squad. With that, he orders Dianel to hand them the gear to carry. Taking the goods, our boy recalls that back in his past life, something similar happened in the Bronzelian forest. Dianel had informed him back then that a demon was lurking there. He had seen it with his own eyes, revealing that an orc was possessed by a demon, allowing it to beat a steel wolf to death. Normally, it would take 5 orcs to take down just one, so for that reason, they had abandoned the area. Dianel had gritted his teeth in regret, knowing that if something like that hadn't happened, the Neo unit would have been disbanded. Coming back to the present, Damien's head aches from these heavy thoughts, but brushing it off, he knows he has no choice but to play porter if he wants to join the mission. The commander addresses everyone one last time, reminding them that whenever they deploy, they must consider every possibility and that making it back alive should be their top priority. With that, he orders them to move out, and as they set off, Damien can't help but smile. It's his first real mission. As they enter the forest, the commander orders the men to spread out and search, while telling the rookie duo to stick close to him. Scanning the surroundings, our boy wonders if this is really the restricted area they were talking about, because it doesn't feel like a battlefield to him. However, every sense in his body is telling him that this place is dangerous, and right on cue, a group shouts that they found something. The commander rushes over and finds a brutal scene of bloody bodies, both villagers and mercenaries lying scattered on the ground. The commander also notices a couple of massive trees snapped completely in half, leaving him wondering what kind of monster could do such a thing. The second in command wonders if it could be a bear-type monster, but the commander doesn't believe a bear monster is capable of that level of destruction. Even if it were an ogre, a feat like that seems impossible. While they're speculating, they notice Damien examining the carcass of a red bear lying dead on the ground. Our boy quickly analyzes the scene, revealing that it could very well be a bear monster because of the claw marks, and points toward the broken trees as further proof. Thinking it over, the commander agrees, impressed by the boy's sharp analysis and solid logic. Seeing him lost in thought, Damien casually claims his father was a hunter, and that he learned everything from him. The commander praises him for it, but Kyle is left standing there completely confused, mentioning that Damien previously told him his father was a soldier. Hearing that, our boy shoots him a deadly serious glare. The commander then orders everyone to pack it up and head back for the day, instructing them to carry the bodies so they can be returned to their families. Hearing this order, Damien is pretty impressed. Pushing further into the forest would have been a total suicide mission since they know nothing about the enemy yet. However, as the commander is shouting orders, Damien notices something in the trees and yells for everyone to watch out. But it's already too late. A massive boulder comes crashing down, pinning a group of soldiers underneath. Our boy quickly calls out to Kyle, who acts like an absolute tank, running up to the rock. With the help of Damien's mana, the two of them manage to lift the heavy boulder right off them. The rest of the soldiers help pull each other out, but the two who were trapped directly underneath are in terrible condition. Seeing them, our boy hands them some herbs and tells them to chew on them to relieve the pain. The commander quickly steps in to stop him, pointing out that those herbs are poisonous before being neutralized. However, our boy reveals he also brought Nyamoja seeds, which will neutralize the poison completely. This totally surprises the commander, and he agrees to let them use it. But before they can even figure out who threw that giant boulder, a deafening growl echoes from nearby. Looking up in absolute horror, they spot a massive monster bear, ready to unleash total hell on them. The soldiers are frozen with fear because they've never seen a black bear of such massive, monstrous size. Without wasting a second, the commander orders everyone to get ready to attack. And as they do, the bear lunges first with a massive, powerful claw strike. Despite the squad managing to dodge, the claw clips a few of them, sending them tumbling across the ground. Seeing that, the commander orders the injured to be taken to the back and tells the squad to aim for the creature's legs first. One of the soldiers, hearing the order, takes charge and swings his weapon, but his strike gets stuck right in the monster's thick hide, leaving him shocked as normally a blow like that would slice right through an orc. As he stands there stunned, the commander yells at him to snap out of it, but it's already too late. The bear swings its claws, sending him flying back, and follows up with a brutal downward strike powerful enough to shatter the ground. However, the commander comes in clutch, catching the bear's claw right before it can crush his man. He notices this thing has already injured 3 of his soldiers, so he has no intention of leaving it alive. Standing firm right in front of it, he shouts orders for all soldiers to keep hitting it until their attacks pierce its defense. One of the soldiers guarding the 2 rookies orders them to stay back. At the same time, the commander manages to create an opening and Dianel immediately capitalizes on it, slicing the monster's leg clean in half. The monster screams in pain while Dianel channels mana directly into his sword, ready to end this thing right then and there. Seeing the mana, Damien is shocked as Dianel leaps into the air and swings with everything he's got, taking down the massive beast with a single mana-infused strike. As the beast collapses, the other soldiers regain their confidence, but the commander is still left wondering where it came from, and notices some weird black spots marked all over its body. As he analyzes the corpse, one of his men points out that some plague victims have spots like these. Meanwhile, Damien walks over to the body and quickly recognizes those marks. They're the exact reason this thing went berserk in the first place. He knows they need to find where it came from right away. Just then, the commander calls out to Eren to keep watch while ordering another soldier to skin the beast for armor. However, our boy steps in and stops them, claiming they can't use its hide like they normally would. The commander is curious about what Damien knows, but without pressing for a full explanation, he orders the men to leave the skin behind and head straight back to base. Back in the office, the commander questions the boy on what he knows about the black spots, to which he reveals that the bear was corrupted by demonic energy. This completely shocks the commander. He had no idea there were dark mages lurking in the forest capable of doing such a thing. Our boy clarifies that it's too early to say for sure if a dark mage is behind it, as it could also be a creature overflowing with demonic energy corrupting everything around it. This dark energy typically stems from dark mages worshipping a demon, but it carries severe consequences down the line. Because of this, the boy realizes the forest must be close to a monostone filled with demonic energy, though it wasn't supposed to manifest this early. In his previous life, this event happened after an incident that shook the entire empire. He anxiously wonders if this is the start of the demonic energy invasion, monsters growing stronger and corrupting others at an accelerated rate. He knows they need to locate and destroy the source before it grows too powerful. The commander is stunned by how much the boy knows about all of this, and Damien gives his classic go-to excuse. He learned it all from his father. Knowing these are desperate times, our boy figures he can craft whatever story he needs to, laying out the full breakdown for the commander. The next day at the barracks, everyone is completely exhausted. Damien wakes Kyle up for the day ahead, but just then, a soldier bursts into the room with news that the forest has been put on total lockdown. It's closed off to both the unit and the herb gatherers, meaning they can easily rest without being sent on any missions. This brings immense relief and excitement to everyone, knowing they couldn't handle another fight with so many of them injured. Kyle, however, notices Damien looking down. He knows it's the perfect time for the unit to rest up, but Damien is worried about why the lockdown was called right now. As everyone is celebrating, they notice a unit of garrison soldiers walking through the hallway, leaving them thoroughly confused. The garrison soldiers march straight to the office, taking the commander by surprise as well. Their leader reveals that thanks to the unit's report, the temple is cooperating, as they manage to sense an evil aura radiating from the monster's corpse. Hearing this, the commander realizes the new kid was right about everything. The leader adds that they've also deployed a priest and launched a full-scale search operation. They then demand that the young rookie who discovered the evil aura come along with them for the investigation. The commander argues that Damien lacks actual field experience, but the garrison forces push back, making it clear that if he refuses, there will be serious pushback. Despite really not wanting to send him out, the commander has no choice and orders his man to go fetch Damien. The boy is called to the office, and just as he enters, he notices the garrison team's uniforms and wonders why on earth they're here. Walking past them as they stare him down, he gets to the commander, who whispers the real reason for calling him in his ear. He gives Damien the choice to refuse if he wants, but the boy instantly agrees to go, knowing deep down that if he doesn't, it'll be too late. The answer really surprises the commander, but the boy confidently confirms that if he can help, he wants to go. He knows that if he tags along, he can locate the corrupted creature overflowing with demonic mana. Still a bit shocked, the commander tells the boy he can leave for now and will be briefed once the operation is scheduled. The next day, as he prepares to depart for the investigation, the commander is still worried about him, asking if he should send a few soldiers along for safety. But Damien, with a smile, assures him that it'll actually be easier for him to slip away alone if things turn ugly. With that, the commander warns him that engaging in combat is strictly prohibited, and the boy enthusiastically promises he won't fight, and will even bring back some herbs safely for the squad. With that, they set off for the investigation. Leading the squad are the garrison commander, Vassal, and the priest of the Atalant Temple, Claire. Seeing the lineup, Damien is impressed, since there might be a dark mage out there, bringing a priest along is a safe bet. As they're marching, Vassal asks if his name is Damien, and the boy confirms it in a super casual tone, taking the commander completely off guard. Seeing his reaction, the boy reminds him that they belong to different sections, knowing internally that the guy is just a stranger to him anyway. Hearing his casual attitude, Vassal reminds him that he's speaking to an officer, to which the boy confirms he'll cooperate as much as he can, so he shouldn't worry. Hearing that, Vassal mutters that he's a lunatic, which Priestess Claire overhears. The commander reveals that the boy is from the Neo unit and was the very first person to raise suspicion about the demonic energy. This surprises Claire, making her wonder how a rookie could already know about demonic energy. With that, she walks up to Damien and asks to fire off a few questions, knowing he was the one who reported it. As the boy agrees, she straight up asks how he knew the creature was corrupted. Seeing her sharp tone, the boy knows she's suspicious of him, so he pulls out his classic "my father told me" story. She's taken aback a bit and wants to dig deeper, but the boy smoothly changes the topic, asking if she examined the corpse herself. She confirms she did, to which the boy, in a serious tone, claims he's familiar with most creatures in the forest, but he's never seen anything like that bear monster. It was completely wild and had black spots all over its hide, which made him suspect demonic energy in the first place. She wonders if he learned that from his late father too, and when the boy confirms it, she thanks him before leaving him be. With that out of the way, they resume their march into the deeper part of the forest. But as they're moving, the boy decides to wander off course to dig a bit deeper, knowing that the action should be starting soon. A soldier notices him crouched in the bushes and, thinking he spotted a monster, rushes over in a panic. But to his total annoyance, the boy is just crouched down picking a huge stash of herbs to take back home. The soldier yells at him, calling him out for acting like he's on vacation. The boy, however, isn't taking that disrespect lying down and warns them that if they keep running their mouths, they'll end up dead. He reminds them that searching is their job. He's only there because they specifically requested him. The soldier shouts back that he startled everyone with his unannounced move, to which the boy calls him weak for getting startled by something so small, pointing out that he's dragging the garrison's reputation right through the mud. Just then, the garrison commander arrives, scaring the absolute crap out of the soldier. Vassal straight up shuts them both down and warns Damien to stop being reckless, as his actions could jeopardize the whole search. The boy agrees to cooperate, and the commander orders everyone to drop their guard slightly and start searching the area in depth. Just then, a loud guttural growl echoes from the nearby bushes, and to their shock, a whole horde of monsters emerges. The soldiers aren't too terrified at first, thinking it's just a standard squad of orcs that'll be a total piece of cake. But panic sets in the second someone notices their glowing red eyes and the distinct black spots covering their bodies, just like the ones on the corrupted bear. Without giving them a single second to think, one of the orcs hurls its heavy axe with full force straight at them. It comes zooming right toward a soldier who has zero time to dodge. But just as it's about to take his head clean off, something heavy blocks the blow. When the soldier opens his eyes, he sees Damien standing right in front of him like an absolute iron wall. Everyone gets into combat formation and, on the commander's order, forms groups of 3 to fight the horde and guard the priest. Seeing the commander stay completely calm even in a chaotic situation like this, Damien is impressed, realizing the guy must have a ton of combat experience. Our boy also notices the soldiers are struggling against these orcs, and it seems like the monsters are being aggressively drawn toward the priest for some reason. They're charging at the girl wave after wave, while she kneels on the ground and starts praying. She instantly begins to glow with a blinding golden light, and seeing that, the boy realizes this is the famous divine power priests are known for. The light is so intense that it blinds the orcs, but even so, the soldiers are still having a hard time taking them down. Seeing them struggle, the boy draws his weapon, realizing that if he just stands around idle, they're all going to end up dead. Despite the commander's explicit order not to fight, the boy charges himself up with mana and leaps into the fray, knowing he doesn't have any other choice. With just one powerful swing, he takes down 2 orcs on the spot. A nearby soldier stands there in complete shock, but the boy orders him to go help the others while he takes over guarding the priest. Still a bit hesitant, the soldier agrees and leaves her in his care. As they leave, Damien asks her if she's alright, but the poor girl is tearing up from the shock. Damien shakes her out of her frozen state, pointing out that if she stays like this, everyone is going to die. He wonders if this is her first time in actual battle, so he guides her to release as much divine power as she can, just like she did a moment ago to save the squad. Still sweating nervously, she agrees, using her holy staff to chant prayers, and just as she does, a massive burst of golden light erupts from her. Damien's eyes go wide in shock, realizing that she isn't just an ordinary priest. She clearly has the raw power of a high priest. All the orcs are instantly blinded, giving the soldiers the exact window they need to go all in. Capitalizing on the opening, they rush in, slicing down the orcs one after another until the entire horde is wiped out. In just a few minutes, the area is clear, and the soldiers finally take a breath of relief. The commander wipes the sweat from his forehead, ordering them to report casualties, injuries, and whether the wounded are still able to walk. To his horror, they report that 8 men are dead, so he instructs them to gather the bodies so they can carry them back home. He then asks the priest if they still need to push deeper into the forest, since they haven't officially confirmed the demonic energy's source yet. She claims there's no need to go any further. The orcs that attacked them were definitely corrupted by that evil aura, and the entire forest is already tainted, meaning something far worse is likely brewing deeper inside. She suggests they fall back and report this to assemble an official subjugation squad. This hypes up our boy big time, as he knows a subjugation squad will be stacked with plenty of priests, and the Neo unit will definitely lead the charge. As he's lost in thought, one of the soldiers calls out to him. Soon, the rest of the squad gathers around, thanking him for saving their lives. The boy casually brushes it off like it's no big deal, taking a sigh of relief as they wrap things up. He then checks his bag and is pretty impressed by the massive haul of medicinal herbs he managed to gather for his unit. Carrying his heavy bag, he walks up to the commander, complaining about how herb sellers in the city are total rip-offs who sell medicine at absurdly high prices compared to other regions, forcing gatherers to spend all their hard-earned hazard pay right back on medicinal herbs. He hands the bag over to the commander to distribute among his soldiers for treatment, and the commander warmly thanks him. With that, the commander shouts the order for everyone to pull out and head back. But off to the side, the priest keeps her eyes locked on Damien, deep in thought about the mysterious rookie. After returning, Damien goes straight to the commander's office, and seeing him, the commander asks if anything happened. The boy lays it all out for him, how the priest confirmed the demonic energy from the orcs who attacked them. Hearing that, the commander hands him a small box that the garrison commander asked him to pass along. The commander also reveals that the garrison commander plans to officially reward the herb gatherers, so the price of medicinal herbs will drop by half. This brings a smile to the boy's face, and with that, the commander dismisses him. However, as Damien leaves, the commander is left thinking back to his earlier conversation with the garrison leader. The garrison commander was thoroughly amazed by Damien, noting that he's pretty brilliant in every way, and revealed with a serious look that he noticed the little guy can actually use mana. Coming back to the present, the commander already knew the boy was special, but to think he can actually manipulate mana. On top of that, he gave away those medicinal herbs for free when he could have sold them for a small fortune in the market. The commander lets out a sigh of relief, concluding that the boy is indeed cut from a different cloth. Meanwhile, on his way back to the barracks, the boy gets curious about what's inside the box and opens it up. To his absolute shock, it's a mana-enhancing elixir. Hyped up by the discovery, he decides to put it to good use right away. Suddenly, the big guy, Kyle, sneaks up from behind, startling him out of excitement to ask what's inside the box. Out of pure reflex, the boy elbows him hard, leaving Kyle shaking from the pain. Trying to cover it up, the boy lies that he just got some medicinal herbs from the garrison commander because he fought a pretty tough battle with them. Hearing about the fight, the big guy gets super hyped and wishes he could have been there too. With that, the boy heads to his room, and as soon as he steps inside, all his roommates jump up excitedly, praising him for gathering those medicinal herbs for them. The boy brushes off the praise, saying he just gathered them with the unit in mind. Soon after, Sub-Commander Aaron walks in, announcing to everyone that a subjugation squad will be formed for the forest within a month, giving them free time to do whatever they want until then. This gets everyone pumped up, and they ask Damien what he plans to do with his free time. Before the boy can answer, he notices Dianel heading for the door, and when asked, Dianel reveals he's going out to train. Before walking out, he shoots a serious look at Damien and exits the room, leaving everyone behind praising his insane work ethic. Out on the training grounds, Diurnal is pushing himself hard, but he's getting completely exhausted and confused about what's going wrong. He knows that back in the forest, he barely managed to attack that bear, and that was his absolute limit. Just then, he notices Damien sprinting out toward the woods with his spear. Diurnal wonders if he's heading back into the forest, realizing that ever since the kid joined, he seems to train out there almost every single day. He also heard rumors from the soldiers that Damien saved everyone back in the forest, making him wonder if the kid has some kind of secret. With all these thoughts swirling around, Diurnal decides to shadow him and see what the boy is really made of. Deep in the forest, the boy gulps down the mana elixir and is blown away by its dense, potent effects. With no time to waste, he sits in a meditation pose to capitalize on his state, channeling all the mana effect properly. He gets so deep into his cultivation that he doesn't even realize night has fallen. Checking his mana core, he realizes that due to its small size, the absorption rate is pretty slow, so he decides to expand it as quickly as possible. Just then, Diurnal steps out of the shadows and calls out to him, asking how long he's been sitting there meditating. The boy breaks out into a cold sweat. He was so focused that he didn't even sense Diurnal's presence and asks him what brings him all the way out here. The guy reveals that he followed him because Damien sneaks out like this every single day and brought up how he heard the kid took down corrupted orcs. Holding his sword tight, Diurnal requests that the boy spar with him, using everything he's got. Damien reminds him that combat between unit members is strictly forbidden, but he freezes when he notices Diurnal's dead serious face. Looking into the guy's eyes, Damien can tell he's hit a massive wall in his training, and has come to him looking for a way out. He directly asks how long he has been stuck. Though a bit hesitant, he admits he's been plateaued for about 3 months now, and no matter how hard he grinds, he isn't improving at all. Our boy, with all his past life experience, knows exactly what happens to a warrior if they don't get proper guidance. He warns that if they get caught sparring, the other soldiers will snitch on them, but Diurnal is confident they won't get caught. Seeing his resolve, the boy drops into a combat stance, warning Diurnal that he's going to get hurt. But honestly, that's exactly what Diurnal is hoping for. With that, both of them grip their weapons, ready to test each other with everything they've got. Back at the base, Eren praises the commander for his work setting up the subjugation squad, pointing out that it's going to be a tough mission. The commander has no other choice though, knowing that if it goes well, it'll be a huge help to everyone. Just as they're discussing the plans, they hear the metallic clashing of weapons echoing from the nearby woods. Curious, they head toward the source of the noise and, to their surprise, find Diurnal and Damien busy going at each other. Seeing them spar, Eren tries to jump in and stop them, but the commander holds him back. He knows Diurnal has hit a massive bottleneck in his training and must have been desperate enough to ask the newcomer for help. The commander suggests they just watch for now, though internally he knows the gap in their actual skill level is way too wide. Back on the field, Diurnal desperately swings his blade, but the boy effortlessly jumps back, dodging every single attack. Diurnal hasn't landed a single hit on him, feeling like the boy is reading through all his moves with absolute ease. Meanwhile, Damien can read everything written all over Diurnal's face and knows how frustrated he must be feeling. He recognizes that his weapon is a heavy sword, which makes his attack path completely predictable. The guy definitely has talent, but this heavy sword is holding him back and will eventually end up ruining his physical balance. Knowing all this, Damien realizes words alone won't be enough to make him see the truth. He'll have to show him firsthand. With that, Damien loads his spear with mana and charges straight at him. Diurnal is a bit surprised, but thinking he still holds the upper hand in raw power, he decides to face him head on. He leaps into the air, but the second their weapons clash, Diurnal's heavy sword breaks clean in half and goes flying backward. The warrior is completely shocked that his expensive sword broke so easily, dropping to his knees in utter despair. Seeing him like this, the boy suggests he try attacking him again, just like he did before. Diurnal is confused as he couldn't even land a hit with a full sword, so how could he do it with a broken half? Still, he gathers whatever strength he has left and swings at him. The boy instantly dodges it, but that single swing makes Diurnal realize something. The shortened sword feels ridiculously light, and his whole body moves so much faster. He can't help but wonder if just reducing the weapon's weight could really be this effective. Making it a teaching point, the boy explains that a massive sword just isn't suitable for his build. A heavy weapon like that is far better suited for someone huge like Kyle. The boy apologizes for snapping his sword and assures Diurnal that he'll buy him a brand new one. This totally shocks him, but internally the boy knows that if breaking a sword wins him Diurnal's complete trust and loyalty, it's worth every penny. He suggests they go buy a replacement during their free time, so the next day they head straight to the weapon shop. There, Damien presents a set of scimitar dual swords, a weapon type commonly used by assassins that will perfectly complement Diurnal's agility. Diurnal nervously brushes it off, admitting he's never used dual swords before and wondering if he can even hurt an orc with them. However, the boy remains confident that it will suit his natural fighting style, reassuring him that he'll master it in no time and become several times stronger than he thinks. He even pushes Diurnal by playfully claiming he won't pay for any other weapon. Damien knows this set is going to cost him a fortune, but it's all for this guy after all. In his previous life, he trusted this man with his life. Diurnal was his loyal comrade and a true friend who died protecting him. Coming back to the present, Damien gladly buys the swords for his friend, knowing he needs to refine the guy's combat skills and make him even stronger than before, even if it won't be an easy road. He hands the dual swords to Diurnal, and the moment he gets it, a cold thrill runs straight down his spine. Meanwhile, over at the Holy Temple, Claire approaches the High Priest, wondering if the monk unit will also be joining the subjugation squad. He reveals that along with the monks, 20 priests will also be deployed, something that feels completely unprecedented to the young girl. She immediately requests to join the squad herself, but the High Priest reminds her that she's already been through a lot on her last investigation. Claire enthusiastically pushes back, insisting she wants to go because it's the exact same location she investigated, to which the High Priest finally agrees. She then asks if the Neo unit is included in the squad, and the High Priest confirms they are. Deep down, she's asking purely because of one person, Damien. The way he stepped in, lifted her spirits, and guided her during that chaotic fight had left a huge impression on her. Soon, the subjugation squad arrives at Urkal, where the squad leader, Baron, is welcomed by Vassal. However, right off the bat, Baron starts acting super rude, calling Vassal a commoner with no last name. Seeing his arrogance, the Neo unit guys are genuinely hurt. Diurnal wonders if all nobles are like that, but the boy assures him that not everyone is the same. Hearing that, he asks how he knows that, to which the boy once again blames it on his father's advice. With that, the squad leader walks up to them and starts addressing the troops, announcing that they have orders from the royal palace to root out the source of that evil demonic energy from the forest. As his loud, authoritative voice motivates everyone, he orders them to advance into the woods. Watching them march out, our boy jokes with Kyle, telling him to shout as loud as he can so he won't get singled out. As they march, the subjugation squad takes the lead while the Neo unit follows behind, making the whole expedition look massive. Diurnal notices their huge numbers, but the boy warns him that numbers alone won't be enough out here since the forest is way larger than they think. Overhearing them, the garrison commander confirms Damien's warning, revealing that even with this many people, he's still worried. As they march deeper into the woods, the pathway narrows and people start getting jammed together. Seeing the bottleneck, the squad leader orders them to switch to a column formation, and Damien is pretty impressed by his quick assessment of the situation. While they're marching, the garrison commander walks up to the leader and suggests keeping the shield bearers in the middle since the current formation is highly vulnerable to flank attacks from monsters. The leader considers the advice and orders the Urkal garrison soldiers to take the center. The garrison commander also suggests sending out a scout squad of fast runners, but the leader refuses, confident they can easily wipe out any monsters that show up. The commander doesn't really agree, but before he can say anything else, the leader warns him not to overstep his authority. With that, they encounter their first batch of monsters, easily taking them down before resuming their march. Boasting about the victory, the leader brags that these little monsters don't stand a chance against his unit, wondering why they haven't subjugated this place sooner. Meanwhile, in the backlines, Kyle catches a sharp smell of rotting meat nearby. Noticing his reaction, our boy asks which direction it's coming from, and he points straight at the ground. Looking down, the boy is shocked to his core to see small black holes scattered across the dirt. He instantly shouts at the squad to watch out, but it's already too late as tons of morks, creatures with long snouts and snake-like tongues, sprout out of the ground. The squad starts fighting off the monsters, totally confused about where they all came from. Our boy and his buddy rush straight into the action, though Damien can't understand why a normally peaceful creature like a mork would attack them like this. He orders Kyle to go help the seniors first, and noticing two morks coming up behind him, he instantly spins around and takes them both down with quick slashes. He then suggests everyone fight these monsters head-on since individually they aren't that strong, and the strategy works. However, seeing just how many of these monsters are popping up, Damien knows they won't slow down on their own, and that he needs to do something fast. Meanwhile, in the backlines, the priests are clumped together, shivering with fear. Thankfully, our boy arrives and asks them to follow him. He leads them toward the battlefield and asks Claire to do what she did before, and she agrees. She instantly begins praying, joined by the other priests, and suddenly a blinding burst of light erupts, blinding all the monsters on the field. Seeing the opening, the garrison commander orders his men to attack, and they take down the morks in the blink of an eye. As part of the standard procedure, the unit commander calls for a casualty check and orders his men to make sure every monster is completely dead. But right as he's giving orders, the squad leader comes up behind him and slaps the absolute crap out of him. Seeing their commander get slapped like that, the soldiers shout in utter disbelief, while the squad leader fumes with rage, demanding to know how on earth the Neo unit neglected these monsters and left them roaming around the forest in the first place. A long silence follows the slap, shocking everyone, but the unit commander talks back, arguing that they couldn't have predicted a normal Mork would get corrupted by a demonic energy. The squad leader shouts at him again, yelling that they should have scouted it earlier and stating that saying, "we didn't know," isn't good enough. However, with a serious look, the unit commander reminds him that the garrison commander had already suggested scouting, but the squad leader refused so they could just rush in and crush the monsters. This enrages the leader even more, and he threatens him, asking if he wants to die right here. Before things can escalate any further, the priest steps in and stops them, reporting that the forest is filled with demonic energy, causing it to develop a demonic will of its own. According to her, the forest has recognized them as enemies, and that's why strange things are happening. Despite hearing that explanation, the leader still blames it entirely on the Neo unit's failure. As the priest tries to interfere, the leader cuts her off in a harsh tone, threatening to write a formal complaint to the temple once everything is over. He then points at the unit commander, claiming he will face his punishment after the mission is done, and with that, he orders everyone to move to a new location. They find a decent spot to camp, and upon waking up from a nice sleep, Damien is surprised to feel his body heavier than usual, wondering if it's the effect of the demonic energy. He knows the source of it all lies at the center and worries that the closer they get, the worse the soldiers' conditions will become, meaning they need to lock down the right direction quickly. Meanwhile, inside the main tent, all the commanders are gathered while the squad leader briefs them. He shows them the route they will take, but the garrison commander thinks they should just head straight to the center, which would be much better than taking the long way around. The Neo unit commander agrees, but to their shock, the squad leader warns them that if things don't go their way and they fail to find the center, they will have to take full responsibility by offering up their heads. Hearing that threat, both of them fall silent, and the leader warns them not to speak when they don't know what it feels like to be in his position. Just then, the priest raises her hand, pointing out that the deeper they go, the denser the demonic energy will become. Since their forces are already getting injured, the more time they waste, the worse off their troops will be and the stronger the enemy will get. The garrison commander chimes in again, emphasizing that they should clear the source first before dealing with the rest. However, the leader refuses to listen, prompting the garrison commander to argue that it's the safest way, and that they can't let soldiers be sacrificed in a forced march. Hearing that, the squad leader shouts in a rage, questioning if he thinks dying for the kingdom isn't a noble sacrifice. To this, the temple commander, Herman, who was also present, agrees with the others that the main goal of the squad is to eliminate the source. He points out that if they do that, the squad leader will earn all the respect, and finishing it quickly will give him full credit for outstanding leadership. This gets the leader hyped up, and he instantly changes his mind, agreeing to march the troops straight to the center to destroy the source first. With that, he orders his troops to prepare for the march. The Neo unit commander walks out and informs Eren that they are heading toward the center to take it down. Shocked, Damien questions their position and formation, to which the commander reveals that they've been put in the vanguard. The boy suggests sending out a scout unit since the garrison is backing them up anyway, but the commander refuses. The boy pushes back, stating he wants to join the scout unit himself, but Eren shouts at him for being too outspoken, reminding him that he's the youngest member here. However, the boy stays firm, knowing he's the fastest one in the unit and has what it takes to be a scout. Remembering that the boy can use mana, the commander allows it, shocking Eren, who tries to argue. But the commander instantly clarifies that the boy won't be leading the scouts. Instead, it'll be Vex. As Vex's name is called out, he steps up to the front line and is quickly told to form a scout unit with the young boy. Vex is shocked, complaining that the boy is far too young and has zero combat experience. But the commander insists that the lack of experience is precisely why he's being paired with him. With that, they set off, with Vex leading the pack and Damien taking the rear. The boy can't help but feel the growing pressure of the demonic energy, knowing they will have to take down the main creature at the center if they want to succeed. Just then, he senses a dark presence nearby and alerts the others, who rush over to check it out. However, when they run toward it and look down, their jaws drop in absolute shock as a massive horde made up of all different types of corrupted demonic monsters has gathered in one place. The group is completely terrified, having never thought it was possible for different monster species to gather in harmony like that. Looking at the horde, Vex can't even think where they're heading, but then a terrifying thought crosses his mind that these monsters are marching straight toward the main subjugation squad. He quickly orders 3 scouts to head back and warn the main force, instructs Damien to keep a lookout for any other suspicious presences around them, and decides that he and the rest of the team will shadow the horde to gauge their exact numbers. Meanwhile, our boy is pretty surprised because he's never felt such intense pressure or seen this many monsters gathered in one place. It really annoys him because if his mana were at level 3, he could have easily figured out the nature of this pressure. While he's lost in thought, his scout squad starts moving, and Vex looks genuinely terrified when he sees just how massive the monster wave is. They know this wave was meant to wipe them out completely, but before he can give any further orders, Damien suddenly starts sprinting in the opposite direction. Vex quickly grabs him and angrily demands to know where he's going. Damien simply points towards something nearby that's radiating an incredibly dark energy, leaving everyone completely shocked. Back with the main squad, they are busy going through tons of monsters, which, thanks to the scout party, they were prepared for. Feeling the pressure, Eren worries if the scout party is okay, to which the unit commander assures him that as long as Vex is with them, they will be fine. He then orders everyone to go all in as priests are busy messing up with their vision. As the commander is busy fighting, a monster jumps on him from behind, but before it could behead the commander, Damien comes in clutch, taking it down. The commander is surprised to see him there, but his attention is taken by Vex, who reports they found the source of the demonic energy. However, before the commander could say anything, Damien whispers something in his ear, and in a serious tone, the commander orders an emergency meeting. He quickly informs the squad leader of this and gives credit to Damien for finding it during the scout mission. Damien continues, revealing that the source is located at the center of the forest and is in the form of a huge crystal. And that's not all. There are more than 100 of these corrupted monsters surrounding it, and high-tier ones at that, with black bears and trolls. This really shocks everyone, and the garrison commander worriedly suggests they should move back, but the leader with his big ego refuses. This really enrages the garrison commander, who yells that they would all get wiped out because these are pretty powerful monsters. His shouting enrages the leader, who warns him about the consequences, but when the garrison commander tries to argue that they are even struggling to handle mere small goblins, the leader unsheathes his sword and puts it to his neck. He blames him, saying that it's because of him, and warns that if he says another word, he will be dead. Meanwhile, the temple commander, hearing that, confirms it with Damien, who warns that even if they kill all of the monsters, they will eventually be wiped out. But before he could suggest anything, the leader firmly orders that they won't retreat. However, Damien continues, claiming he knows a solution. He says despite them being weak, they can make the first move, suggesting they form an assault squad and destroy the crystal before the monsters come. This surprises the leader as well as the commander, who ask if he is confident that it will work. However, according to the boy, this is their only option. When the temple commander questions him, he reveals that there are also other high-tier rock monsters that are basically impossible to kill in their current state. His plan is to draw their attention away and then destroy the crystal before they get a chance to protect it. This makes the leader seriously think it over, so the unit commander checks with Vex, who confirms that despite being a reckless idea, it's their only real shot at winning. Hearing Vex vouch for the plan, the unit commander agrees to form an assault squad, with the garrison commander joining as well. The temple commander then steps forward, volunteering himself and his priestess, Claire, for the mission. Seeing everyone agree, the leader has no choice but to approve the plan. He orders 10 of the best soldiers from each squad to form the assault team. All the commanders immediately rush off to assemble their teams, while the unit captain looks at Damien, already knowing that he's definitely going to be included. As all the squads gather their teams, some of the soldiers are confused when they see the little boy among them. They start mocking his height, but they quickly freeze in shock when the subjugation squad vice commander, Beltos, reveals that this boy was the one who found the source while they were all on the verge of death. He calls them out for slacking off, and they naturally start apologizing. Overhearing this, Damien finds Beltos to be a pretty useful guy and feels like he has seen him somewhere before. Just then, the unit commander asks Damien where they should enter from. The boy points out the fastest route, which also happens to avoid most of the monsters, though he warns them that the path can be pretty rough. Hearing that, some of the soldiers laugh at his confidence, but Damien ignores them since they're in a race against time. He quickly rushes toward the forest, shocking everyone, and they all start following him to keep up. However, the priestess finds it pretty hard to maintain their pace. To her surprise, the unit commander simply lifts her onto his shoulder and keeps rushing forward with the team. Just as they get close to the crystal, the boy signals everyone to stop. Seeing its enormous size and overwhelming power, everyone is left shocked. The priestess immediately realizes that if they break it, the resulting energy burst could be pretty brutal. Damien, however, notices that there are still 20 monsters guarding the crystal. Knowing they can't afford to waste any time, he gathers everyone and lays out the plan. He tells them to select 5 people from each unit to lure the giant monsters away, while the remaining members deal with the smaller monsters. The temple commander will be in charge of breaking the crystal, while the priestess will handle the signals. The unit commander then orders Damien's group to take care of the smaller monsters. With that, the priestess starts praying and releases a massive wave of blinding, pure light. The light is so intense that it blinds the enemies, creating the perfect opening everyone needs to charge in. As the first squad rushes forward, Damien's squad goes after the remaining smaller monsters and starts taking them down left and right. Our boy swings his spear around, knowing he has enough mana to deal with them all. However, they soon realize that these monsters are much tougher than expected, especially the ones in the back. Looking at them, Damien explains that they're werewolves, which are 5 times stronger than orcs. Right on cue, the werewolves start tearing through the soldiers with their terrifying claws. Damien, however, steps forward to take it on and orders the others to open a path for him. Kyle and Diana are worried about him, while the boy himself knows that if he had 3-star mana, this would have been easy. With his current level though, it's going to be pretty difficult. Despite that, he confidently tells them that he can handle it. After all, he knows better than anyone that he has never really fought comfortably throughout his life. A life or death struggle like this is right up his alley. With that, he stands directly in front of the werewolf, his body radiating immense mana. The monster swings its massive claw at him, but Damien easily dodges it and orders Dianal to move. Dianal, along with Kyle, follows his command and starts rushing back while the boy continues staring down the demonic werewolf. He can see the killing intent radiating from the monster's eyes, but he's done with dodging. Damien charges forward and drives his mana-loaded spear directly into the werewolf's neck. He swings with so much force that the spear cuts straight through the monster's body, cleanly slicing it in half. The attack takes a huge toll on his stamina, and he collapses to the ground. However, he gathers enough strength to shout at everyone to move in. The moment the temple commander hears his command, he charges his fist with holy light and slams it hard into the crystal. The impact causes cracks to spread across its surface, and seeing this, the soldiers finally breathe a sigh of relief, thinking they've won. However, to everyone's shock, dark energy suddenly erupts from the crystal. It catches the temple commander off guard, pinning him and sending him crashing into a tree. Seeing the enormous amount of dark energy pouring out of the crystal, the unit commander is completely stunned. For Damien, however, it's an absolute nightmare as he realizes that the demonic energy inside the crystal has gone completely berserk.